17th, 2022 is now in session. The person who was going to be giving invocation today called and told us they could not make it. So if we could just please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. Could you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call.
Carlson, Vieira, Maniscalco,
Here.
Hurtak, Goods,
Here.
Miranda, and Citro.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you. Let's go with the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. May I just very quickly just discuss waiving the rules for allowing for CMT?
You are correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Good morning, council, members of the public. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Today's meeting of November 17th, 2022 is here at Old City Hall. It's available to be seen on cable TV at Spectrum Channel 640, Frontier Channel 15, and on the internet at tampa.gov/livestream. A reminder for the use of CMT, pre-registration is required. There are certain technical requirements, and those are available on the City Council's webpage, the links to those instructions. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask the council waive the rules to allow the continued use of CMT.
A motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, now we will go through the approval of the agenda. Councilman Miranda, number one.
Yes, sir, we are going to pull this one, and it'll be coming back in sometime in December. I'm going to get all the parties together on what date they can both come.
Second.
And then does it,
We have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now, I do not believe Chief Bennett is going to be here today. Okay, there was an ask to pull agenda item number 35 by staff to be discussed. Can we do that at number?
Yes, good morning, Council. Adri Colina, Director, Logistics and Asset Management. Wanted to thank you for your flexibility and willingness to move this item up from the agenda, from the consent agenda to staff reports. We realize it is a mundane item and something very routine, but I wanted to come before you just to, again, as I shared during our briefings, let you know what this transaction is asking for. It is simply amending an existing agreement to allow for expenditure of funds council has already approved.
Okay. We're at this point, we're just going
Okay.
through the agenda right now, and I'm just asking council if we don't mind moving
Okay.
this to agenda item number 2.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
a couple more seconds.
Okay, no problem. I'll step off to the side.
I believe agenda item number 5 has been asked to be continued for 30 days. I believe it's December 15th.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco. Councilman Goose, is that all right with you? I've got a memorandum from Ms. Sharisha Hills.
What date is that then, please?
December 15th. I have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goose. All in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes,
Thank you.
Councilman, Council Shelby.
Thank you. Items 3 and 4, with regard to memorandums on that, did you want staff present, or is that not necessary?
I believe that staff will be available virtually if necessary.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I think there's a report on item number 3 today, but if I could make a quick motion, The SOG people have asked us to remove this from the agenda going forward. Could I make that motion now?
Are you asking for it to be removed?
Yes. Not now.
I'm wanting to make sure that staff is here to
Not-
give their comments before I make.
I don't want to move number 3, just going forward, they would like to remove it.
Could you do that after the
Sure.
report then, please? Thank you. But I'll
Okay, Mr. Shelby?
Yes, sir.
Anything further?
no, sir, thank
Did
you.
you want to talk about 8 after we open?
Yes, what I'd like to do, council, is very briefly discuss item 8, and then I'm going to ask for a very brief continuance to December 1st, but I'd like to talk about it when it comes up.
When it comes up, all right, I'll also be discussing, number 9. All right, is that?
For the agenda?
We have motion, I'm sorry, yes, ma'am. And the memorandum.
Yes, with the, addendum.
Make a motion to reschedule the item that was handed to me for the workshop. That was Miranda Carlson, that the city council be, that the draft community benefit agreement ordinance be brought back, and we're going to change it from today. You have a specific date? We'll leave it then for the date, December 1st, you said? December 1st. On the staff reports.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Aye. Okay, and now we have a motion to accept the agenda and the addendum by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Excellent. Let's go to agenda item number 2, which is actually agenda item number, I apologize. Now we will go for public comment. If anybody is going to be giving a public comment, can you please approach the podium? All others, if you wouldn't mind forming a line on my left, your right. Good morning.
Uhuru. Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. Name's Menteznat. That name means anything's possible. And what I'm here today to say is, first and foremost, we have to know it's so important that we as African people get some type of resolution and reparations in our lifetime. That's very important. We cannot keep going generation after generation with only knowing and experiencing insults, humiliation, oppression, and slavery in a different form. Black people in this city and other cities have to wake up to our reality, and our reality is reparations. Nothing more, nothing less. Reparations, what we're owed. By no means shall we allow anyone to get away with 400 years of brutal oppression and subjugation of African people. We have to stop allowing these people to evolve their methods of oppression in a manner where it is difficult to understand or comprehend. White people have a subtle way of insulting our intelligence and expecting us to accept that as facts. $1 billion budget and black people down here begging for money for Juneteenth. It's an insult to our intelligence. A city that's moving forward, but leaving all the black people in the background and doing gentrification in a way where we're being pushed out of the city through code enforcement, law enforcement, other forms of enforcement that is difficult to see because they're dealing with us one by one or side of town by side of town. This has to stop. And we African people have to hold the people there, not just Orlando Ghouls. We have to hold all city council representatives responsible for the treatment we as African people receive in this city. We've got no justice, none whatsoever. And that have to change. People just can't get off the hook and think it's cool. People can't see our neighborhoods keep going down, keep coming back for one initiative after the other around election time, and then they move out of the way. And people can't keep doing what they're doing, like trying to put Janet Cruz on the city right now. Stuff like that have to stop. This city have to advance in a way where everyone can see and enjoy the growth of it.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We thank God for this blessed opportunity to be here once again, speaking on your behalf and speaking on our behalf. You know, I'm just grateful I got here today because so much is going on in the world, basically against black folk. And we are having problems big time. Now, the white folks that get on the city council board are letting the mayor and everybody else push the black folks out of their own neighborhood. That's not right. That's not right. But y'all can sit back and lay back and let it happen to us. Basically because y'all don't live in our neighborhood. When I was coming over here, I wanted to tell y'all to give us our neighborhood back. 22nd Street in Chelsea, where y'all done dig them big, what y'all call retention hole. Yep. What is it retaining? Nothing. Yep. Not a damn thing. And it's so sad the way y'all treat us as black citizens. And we need to get to somebody, for somebody to understand that we just want righteousness. We ain't asking y'all for nothing else. Give us our righteousness and treat us like citizens of the United States of America, and we'll be pleased. When I came down here one time to y'all meeting, the mayor and all the policemen were in here. I couldn't come in here and sit down, the police blocked the door. I had to sit out there on the step. That's not right. If y'all don't want us to come here to y'all city hall, then give us our land back there in Belmont Heights and Jackson Heights, and we'll build our own city hall. We'll be glad to build it. There you go. But the way y'all mistreating us is devastating, and we don't deserve it. Our ancestors that came here from different parts of the world, they built up this country. They have built up this country and did a good job of building it up. But now that most of them dead and gone on home, I got to come here with my crippled self and try to speak up for justice. Y'all don't hear me. Y'all can give less than a damn about that Reverend William. He old, walking with his cane, walking with his crutches. He ain't gonna be around much longer. And you don't wanna know something? Maybe I'm not gonna be around much longer. But I tell God, thank you, that when I leave here, I'm going home to be with Jesus. God bless all of my children.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Pastor, good morning. Pastor, if you can, please state your name for the record, if you don't mind. Pastor, I'm sorry.
Say that again.
If you could just state your name for the record.
Oh, I thought I did. Maybe I forgot. Pastor William, Frank William, 1112 East Scott Street.
Thank you so
Tampa,
much.
Florida,
Thank you, sir.
33603. 02, Rob. Now that you got my name, I hope you want to do something for me.
Good morning, Allison Hewitt, 4904 32nd Street, Tampa, Florida. Two items I'd like to have a comment about is one, item 53. It's a CRA/City Council item. Just as you are monitoring the budget, you will also see that we did support increasing the staff in the East Tampa CRA. And I would like to ask you to monitor our actual accomplishments to see if that was still a smart expenditure, or if that's something that we need to make sure that we are looking at the actual output from the East Tampa CRA staff. The second thing I'd like to ask for your support on is item number 73, the East Tampa Overlay District. With your approval of the pre-development program, there will be some significant projects brought forward for your consideration. And to be able to maintain the historical prominence of East Tampa and the look of East Tampa, this overlay district will also be important as those developments come forward for your consideration and approval. The community has worked very hard on this, and in conjunction with staff, we really want to say we appreciate that staff were giving us what was in the long-range plan, and be able to help put recommendations that maintain the look and feel and history of East Tampa. So I do ask for your support on item number 73, the overlay district for the East Tampa CRA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Goode, you're recognized.
73. Okay, that's a priorly initiated text.
And council, that's scheduled for 1:30.
Okay, something just caught my eye when I looked at the whole piece on it. I'm probably gonna have a problem with this. I didn't notice that before.
Is there anyone else in the public wishing to make public comment? Anyone else in chambers wishing to make public comment? I believe we have two online. Ms. Pointer, are you there? Ms. Pointer? Then let's try Ms. Strohmeyer. Ms. Strohmeyer, are you there?
Hello, this is Jean. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Strohmeyer. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are y'all today?
Fine. Would you just please state your name for the record?
Yep, for the record, Jean Strohmeyer. I live Interface south of Gandy for 30 years. Just going to run through the agenda so y'all have food for thought when voting on these items. Item number 3, the SOG update. Yay, we've done a really good job, and I thank the staff for that. Let's see, we have number 4, volunteer corporation the course. Oh, that's not corp. I'm just looking at my notes. Volunteer corp, the corp. I don't really know what that's about, but you know, it sounds like we're starting more little administrations within our administration. You know, I don't know. Tell me what that's about. Number 8. Now, y'all's Tampa City Council immunity. I like that idea based on what happened to Councilman Dingfelder. However, we got to make sure that we don't have some unintended consequences with, you know, giving lawyers and, you know, if somebody's just out and out does something, you know, fraudulent or bad, then we can't represent them. You know, just so y'all, I just wanted, you know, to think about that. Number 9. Limit workshop items. Not sure why we need to do that. I know things run over, but then we just need to maybe run the meetings quicker. Speeding, number 10 and 11, street aggressive driving grant. In Tampa TPD grants, there's millions and billions of dollars that we spend on TPD and all that, and we keep getting all these grants. And here's a 13 and 12 last call grant. 14 and 19, $3 million, sit tight, be right. All of a sudden, the Department of Justice is giving us all kinds of money. It's a lot of money. 20 and 21, opioid abuse site, anti-drug site. Look, the opioid problem is coming from our southern border, and the approval of all these drug clinics that are all over. I mean, they're popping up everywhere. It's cash only drug business. It's just like when we had the crisis back in the 90s and people were overdosing. I just had an overdose in my family, and I really need to, you know, y'all just look into that. Number 22, gun intelligence. That's some New York crap from your New York Bloomberg guy that's running our city. We don't appreciate that. Law-abiding gun citizens, the gun holders do not need any more gun intelligence. So We have number 23, $500,000 for the parks. Lord have mercy. My park in Inner Bay South of Gandy is a disaster. It's just horrible, but we don't get any of that money. We could use a splash pad. They want certain things in our park, even a nice playground we don't have in our park. It's just like a terrible park. The rest of the park is great, but not for the kids. Number 40, community gardens. I love that. We need to get community gardens up and running yesterday. We're into a food shortage because of the administration that's going on in the White House, and it's trickling down to us. We're going to have food shortages. We need to have our own gardens. I maintain a garden every year. I'll be happy to help with that. And 58, this AIDS, a lot of money coming in for AIDS. And like I said before, a lot of people thought AIDS was over. We know what causes AIDS, so we all need to take it easy.
Ms. Strohmeyer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Pointer, are you there? Is Ms. Pointer logged on?
She is. Stephanie Pointer, if you could hear us, please unmute yourself.
Ms. Pointer? Going once? Ms. Pointer, are you unmuted?
She was, hold on.
Let's proceed. Now we'll go to agenda item number 2, which is actually agenda item number 35 that's been pulled.
Take two.
Thank you for your patience.
My apologies for prematurely approaching the podium. I've never been first on the agenda and without the Chief of Staff, and I wanted to be respectful of your time. Adri Colina, Director of Logistics and Asset Management. As I had mentioned previously, what we're asking for in item 35 is an amendment to an existing agreement within our fleet division, and it is to allow expenditure of funds already approved by City Council to our contractor. And so that's what we're asking for, and we realize it's routine, but I did want to come before you because although it's under the $3 million threshold, I wanted to just reassure you we're not asking for more funds. We're simply asking to align the contract to allow for the expenditure of the funds and make myself available for any questions.
Is there any questions? Councilman Goods.
Ms. Colina, this is for the parts.
Yes, sir.
I remember we had a conversation 2 years ago about that part, about those parts, I believe. And this is an update of the contract, right?
This is what we're asking for in this transaction. This contract is a 2014 contract. The terms of the contract were 5 years with 5 additional one-year renewals. The contract runs from December to December. So right now, we're simply asking for expenditure of funds. We will be back before you in a couple of weeks to ask for the second to the last extension to that contract.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
I just want to ask, Councilmember Miranda, is this do I remember correctly, this is the one that you had a problem with before or not?
It's just an understanding that, coming from where I come from, I guess, if you're buying a product, whether it's a pen or not, and then somebody says, I can do a better job, but they're getting all the information, but not only them, there's a lot of individuals that by public records, you ask who you're doing, who are your vendors, and you have to give them all your vendors, every single one of them. And that's what part of that law about giving information to the public is something that it's very good, but somehow sometimes you pay consequences. And those consequences, and I'm not saying this are consequences in this case, they get your vendors and then they say they can do a better job. So then I tell myself, you mean to tell me we've been doing not so good of a job? Which is not a fact, but it leaves you with that type of doubt. And Mancom now has been in business with about 3 or 4 years, maybe more.
With us?
Yeah, about 5 years.
8 years.
8 years, time flies. And so 8 years, and I maybe after this deal, if it goes through, we can ask for the department to give us an analogy of what the costs real are. In other words, they have their employees, we would have our employees. Are there any difference? I would imagine from coming, sometimes in the private sector, they would say, yes, we do a better job. But then in transforming into reality, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're getting the same employees at the same pay, at the same benefits? I don't really know. So these are the things that we're going to have to ask, I believe.
So can I just ask, you know, we all have different levels of expertise in different subjects, and this is one that you've obviously studied maybe more than the rest of us, and you've brought it up over the years. Do you support this resolution?
I'm going to support this so it goes to the last year, and we can, because now it'd be chaotic if we change something, and this is just my opinion, I may be wrong. If they leave today and we have to tomorrow, do we save the same employees? I don't know what that contract says.
And then she just said they're gonna come back for renewal
In December.
in December, and then, so would you?
I think we have to have the question then in December about, that's my opinion, I'm not trying to sway anyone's mind. Give me the list of all the employees, tell me what they're paid, tell me what benefits they have compared to what we had.
If you make a motion later to ask for that information in advance, I'm happy to second it.
I will make that later on.
Councilman Goode.
I remember many decades ago, we used to run the Parks Department. We used to run all of that. So I don't know what changed, because I know sometimes they say we don't have the parts now, or there's some difficulties with it, but I know when we ran it, it was more efficient. I mean, I know times change, but you know, especially when I came, we used to call it sub 4. A lot of older people remember that. I think it may be something to look at, Ms. Colina, just to make sure that, you know, things are changing, prices are going up, but what's the cost variable versus us versus them? So, but
Maybe now we should ask them, give me a list of all your vendors and what you're paying for it. I don't know, but we gotta come to a consensus. And the only way we're gonna find out is, give me the list of all your vendors, let me know what you're paying for the product, even though they're saying they're buying it and selling it to us at the same price, which I have to believe that, I have to believe it, but it swallows my throat sometimes rasp when I gotta swallow iron instead of a filet mignon. But that's how it is.
Well, I thank you all for your comments and for your questions. I can assure you that as I've been in this seat, we visited a couple other municipalities. We visited Hillsborough County and others, just comparing and seeing how are we doing compared to others and what is that best practice. And I can assure you right now, in the climate that we're in with the automotive industry and the supply shortage issue, this contract with ManCon, which they charge us no markup on the parts, has really placed us in a good position, because the last place any one of us would ever want to be in is if someone were to call for a police or fire to show up and say, sorry, we can't come because we couldn't get a spark plug. I mean, that's not acceptable. So the buying power of ManCon, which is a nationwide contract, and they actually service our military as well, has really been to our advantage, especially now.
In fact,
But
they are
absolutely,
military.
Yep, absolutely. Moving forward in 2024, we will, when we put this out for bid, we're definitely always looking for the best option and the best service to our citizens.
Any other comments or questions? Councilman Carlson, because this is Public Works Committee and Councilwoman Hurtak is out of town, would you prefer to save this until you make the motions for
Sure.
Public Works?
Sure, whatever you guys want.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, you too. Agenda item number 3. Staff here for that. Ms. Travis.
Good morning, Council. Nicole Travis, Administrative Development and Economic Opportunity. Stephen Benson submitted a report on these items. These items have been a long list that's been circulating for some time, and the memo states that all of the items are being worked on with the different studies that we have. So I'll answer any questions, and we appreciate working with the community and the feedback that we got from Ms. Pointer in her correspondence.
Councilman Carlson, this is your motion.
Yes, here's an email that Nicole and I received from Stephanie Pointer. I'll pass it down, and if you all could give it to the clerk for the file. But what it says is that after discussion with the SOG leadership, we have decided that we'd like Councilmember Carlson to release staff from the expectation of reporting back on this issue.
Again, are you satisfied with the report?
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to receive and file
Second.
and the November 2022 quarterly staff report on the items of concern to the South of Gandy neighborhood leaders, and accept this as the final report on this item with no further reporting required.
Councilman Carlson has made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any objections?
Thank you and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4. Ms. Nguyen.
Good morning, Council. Osea Nguyen, Administrator of Neighborhood and Community Affairs. So I was asked to come before you with agenda item 4, to report on the volunteer corps as, for assisting with emergency events such as sandbags, as well as to report on pet-friendly shelters. I submitted a memo, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Is there any comments or any questions? Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say thank you for what you all did, and the way you handled it was, acceptable. However, there's got to be more distribution because the lines are getting so long. Then on the one on MacDill, when you went and lined up to get to the sandbags, it was all the way from the park, all the way around past to Spruce, all the way west to halfway to Hines almost, not Hines, but Lincoln, I'm sorry. And there was a lot of traffic problems, and I'm not casting stones. I think you had to do it as an emergency thing because it wasn't supposed to be here. Then they showed up, and these are the things that are happening. So we have to have, instead of 1 or 2, we have to have 5 or 6. And I think distribution that way doesn't clog up the streets because there could have been avoid some accidents. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
Councilman Goods, and then I'll come back to Councilman Crawford.
The machines, have we looked into those machines?
Yes, sir. Now I was gonna make that comment. So yes, we have looked into sandbags machines. And if I may, trying to get to why this question was asked, I'm prepared to talk about 2 things. One, Councilman Miranda, is trying to understand what can we do with the volunteers and how we can best use them. The issue of the problem, one of the problems I think we're trying to solve is just that how do we relieve those pressure points within the community? And the solution to that is to identify other areas where we can stand up sandbag locations. We have already started identifying those areas. It's important for us to have the ingress and egress so that we won't stand up an area and then we have the same problem in another area because it has not been thought out. So we are in fact working on that. Councilman Goods, in terms of the sandbag machines, yes, we are looking into that, and the most recent expense for our machine was about $40,000 to $50,000. However, that machine is able to fill approximately 1,000 sandbags in an hour. So we're looking to see how do we best posture the machine, how do we actually find those locations where we need to stand up additional sites so that we can relieve the pressure within the community.
Are the machines mobile at all? I think, are those machines mobile?
Councilman Guzzo, I have to let you know that.
And the reason I ask that because if they're mobile, people are trying to get those shovel themselves. I think that's a part of the holdup as well. We're trying to get those bags shoveled. I think if they're already pre-bagged, and again, I still contend that you still have FDOC, you still have the sheriff's office. I still say that if we know something is coming, I still say we can utilize those hands and to kind of help us in that aspect as well. I think the biggest part you have is transportation for people. When you have some of our seniors, I know I went out there, filled my car up with several bags to take to some seniors who just can't get out there. So, we can't fix everything. I understand, but I don't know if we may look bringing on or the overtime or whatever, to where you have a couple of those trucks to where, you know, you get call-ins for people who are seniors, that we can have them go and take those bags to them, because sometimes, you know, they don't have transportation, they're stuck in too. So, again, we can't fix every problem, but we still gotta look at them and see how we can, but no, we can't do what we can do, so.
Yes, sir, and so in terms of, distributing or delivering to seniors, we did some of that as a test, if we knew that there were some. We had the questions in terms of, can we pre-bag and, these sandbags, and we in fact did that. When we pre-bag, we primarily give those to the seniors. So, so we are looking at, we're being a lot more flexible and fluid in what we can do and how we can handle, the sandbag, situation. It's not a situation, but the good problem that we do have. In addition to that, one more second, that is, we are looking at alternatives, sustainable alternatives, in terms of how do we reuse what devices are out there so we can reuse those, the sandbags. So we are looking at that as well. So we're not just depending on just the sand or the sandbag machines. We are bringing in vendors to look at what is it they have to offer, and then does it fit for our, for
We did
what
run
we
out of
do
sand, if I
in
recall, we
town.
ran out of sand at one point, right?
As long as we have beaches, we will not run out of sand.
We had to go get it, I'm just saying,
I know, we have, no, we have a we have a backup, we have that, we have vendors that we can get the sand to. It's just a matter of how quickly they can get it to us. So I just wanted just to throw that out there. Yes, oh.
Councilman Goode, you finished?
Yeah, I just think the investment needs to be maybe a couple of those machines. I mean, we got a bigger city growing, you know, might as well put it in there sooner than later so we can have them and get them moving. I just don't want to delay it because of 40,000. If there are a couple of machines out there, we need to reallocate some things in the budget. I mean, we have storms here, and I think that's a need and a priority, so that needs to be done. To get a couple of those machines, we need to go ahead and do it. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Carlson?
Yeah, we, at the city, we have a budget of like 1.9 billion, and we spend a lot of money, including things like $12 million boathouses. Hurricanes are a time when people are the most afraid, they're most vulnerable. They're desperate to get their family out or get their family to shelter, get their pets to shelter also. Some of them have health concerns. They're worried about whether their machines are going to be working. And in the middle of that, they're worried about flooding on their homes, and they rush to the city sandbag lots and they wait for hours. And they're they're naturally upset and worried that the time they're spending there is going to cause them to not make it back in time to help their family. And I think, OC and I talked about this yesterday, but I think that 50,000, 100,000, 150,000, considering the money we wasted on other things, it's worth it to reduce the stress of our people. People want to feel protected, and they want to know the city cares about protecting them. And having more people out there sandbagging is never going to take the place of what machines can do. So what I'd like to do, and by the way, I heard more complaints. I wouldn't exactly call them complaints, but people were terrified they weren't going to make it back to their homes in time, or they were going to get stuck in traffic or whatever. But so many people complained about this, like I guess Councilmember Goods heard. I'd like to make a motion to have city staff report back to us on January 19th about how to purchase sandbagging machines and how to reduce the lines at the sandbag centers.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections?
Thank you to OC and her department for researching all this proactively.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Nguyen, as a person that was out there filling up sandbags, I want to thank staff, and I want to thank Parks and Recreation. Their families out there helping to fill out sandbags when they could have been home helping their families secure their homes for the hurricane. Thank you. We learn from our mistakes. Excuse me. We learn through every experience we go through. And I'm sure that the city of Tampa is going to learn from the experience we went through from the last two hurricanes. Ms. Nguyen, thank you. Thank Park and Recreation.
Thank you so much.
And thank Ms. Sharisha Hill for me also.
Will do, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Ms. Nguyen? Oh, yes, sir. Item number 5 is coming up. I know they asked for continued. Since I have you here, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, sir.
Councilman Goods, you're recognized.
Item number 5, I know there was a memo, but I know that this project has been put off for many, many years. I remember when we first got that turf field put in there. I was one of the signatures on that because you had to have an organization, and our football program was a part of that when that turf field got in there. They're tearing the field up. They are tearing the field up. We've got to secure that facility. At that time, it cost us $1 million when it was low to get it in there. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been 1.5. But now they're just, they're cutting it, they're just tearing it up. So we've got to go and try to secure something so we can keep those motorbikes out of there and lock it so they can't get in there. I go along that western wall by the apartment complex where they keep cutting that little wire fence. We have to secure the facility. And again, I know we hate to ask CRA for money as well because, CRA is designed for certain things, but I think this might fall into the realm to help that if we cannot find the money in our budget. But I'm just saying, we've got to get that fencing. I made a motion about that in 2019 and with Paul Dial, didn't think about it. It was made prior to that. But we've got to get fencing, good fencing at that park.
We'll get it done, sir.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 6. Chief Johnson.
Good morning, Calvin Johnson, Deputy Chief Tampa Police Department, here to appear and report on item number 6. I got Captain Travis Moss here in charge of our Violent Crime Bureau, and I got Dave Fleet from ShotSpotter to answer any questions. So at this point in time, I'll have Captain Travis Moss to give an update on the violent crime and ShotSpotter.
Good morning, Councilman. My name is Travis Moss. I'm the captain of the Violent Crimes Bureau. Previously, we were asked to come in and do a SWOT analysis for ShotSpotter. Going over some numbers just so everybody understands, ShotSpotter basically covers approximately 4 square miles of the 175 square mile of the city. It encompasses 17 schools, 10 parks. Over the last, between 2021 and 2022, there's been a decrease of about 30% of the ShotSpotter alerts we've had in that area. The crime has gone down in the ShotSpotter area as far as violent crime, as far as shootings goes. I can go into further stats if you'd like to, but basically it has been a tool that we use in the city, and it's been pretty effective.
Jim?
Councilman Goods.
Councilwoman Hurtak was passionate about this, so she is not here. And it was her motion with Mr. Maniscalco, I believe. What I can say about the ShotSpotter is that I don't think there's any guaranteed number stats on it, but what I can say is that it does help at times. We had a couple of incidents, I think about a month ago, where someone was shot, and without the ShotSpotter, the person probably would have been dead, I believe. But I think the ShotSpotter was able to get police there to find that victim, to get him to a hospital. So some may feel, it's a waste, but there are some pros to it. If that was your loved one and they were in that alley or at that store bleeding to death and you had no avenue, if no one knew they were there, how do you feel? But unfortunately, the ShotSpotter was able to alert law enforcement to scour the area, and they found the gentleman shot. It has happened more than once. I don't have an issue with it. I know it is a tool. Some might say it costs and expensive in the numbers, but sometimes I don't believe in stats. Stats can be skewed any kind of way. I believe in results. I don't believe in the numbers game. And sometimes the police department has numbers. And sometimes numbers don't really tell the true story sometimes. But I can tell a story when I can say something worked. I don't know how the council members feel, but I'll be in favor to go ahead and keep the program at this time because I can see the benefit that it did or does help some people in distress at times. And A lot of times it gets screwed because you have people shooting firecrackers. And and it throws it off a little bit with your numbers, but in most cases, if shots are fired, police can't get to the other area quickly to see what's going on and maybe prevent something else from going on. So that's my 2 cents on the ShotSpotter program. I don't look at the numbers. I look at the actual work that it's doing. Did it do anything? Did it prevent anything? And in this case, it has prevented some deaths because police officers were able to get there to give somebody some aid. So that's my spiel on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I think the case you mentioned, the person was deceased already or passed away. And the question about ShotSpotter is, be setting aside all the civil rights issues which have been covered in the media, the issue is, could this money be better spent? And what I hear from the police officers, because I think they're the ones, the beat officers are the ones that are affected by this, is they want more police officers on the field. We're short about 200 officers from where we were about 15 years ago, and they feel overtaxed. And 250,000 or whatever it is, it may be a small amount of money, but it could pay for 2 or so police officers. Let me ask a couple questions. How many of these are in South Tampa?
There is no ShotSpotter in South Tampa.
And how many are in West Tampa?
There is nothing in West
And
Tampa.
how about New Tampa?
There's nothing in New Tampa.
And so there are shootings in Ybor almost every weekend. How many are in Ybor City?
ShotSpotter ends just north of Ybor City.
Okay, so you all see what happened on this. I mean, it's redlining with a technology in a way. There's violent activity going all over the city, and it's easy to play with numbers. As Councilman Good said, I'll use that argument the other direction. The violent crime rate in Tampa has gone up every year for the last 3 years, and even though we've supported every expenditure, and it's gone up higher than the national average. You can see the Times editorial about that. We need when you ask actual police officers, they say we need more police officers in the field. And this is a technology that's only deployed in East Tampa. It's not even deployed in Ybor City. Ybor City, I've had several meetings with chiefs of police and chief of staff and others. Ybor City is begging for help, and for some reason somebody didn't put these in Ybor City. The other thing is, I won't remember the numbers exactly right, but one of the arguments is, well, 90% of these are not called into 911. Well, if there's a dead body behind a convenience store, somebody's eventually going to call it in. And it's always possible that somebody's life would be saved, but out of, if I remember correctly, out of 500 calls a year, only about 125 or 140 were actually investigated further than looking at some shells. And out of those, only about 25 had charges applied to them. And when I asked the question, how many of those 25 were not called into 911, the only example that was given to me, which maybe not was even in the 25, was this one about the person who was already deceased. The problem is, if you talk to actual police officers, and here's the problem with this technology, more than anything, is it wastes police officers' time. If we're already short 200 police officers, and if police officers feel like they have about 35% of the time to patrol as they did 15 years ago because of paperwork, and we're using 2 different technologies to track. I don't know why we use 2 different software packages, but we use 2 different software packages to monitor things. This is a huge burden on them. So what one police officer said is, I was going to a site with my partner, and because we're required to go to these other sites, we had to pull away, and it put my partner in a dangerous situation. If 360 or so of these lead to nothing, they either see nothing or they see gun shells. So what the police officers say is, we go out there. Remember, there's violent crime going on throughout the city. Violent crime rate is shot up more than the national average. So police officers, we're already 200 short. What they do is they have to go out there and look at this. They have to spend an hour or 2 looking around. If they find shells, then they have to call forensics. Forensics has to come out, document it, take photos, take an hour or 2 to do that with the police officer waiting. Then forensics has to take it back to their office and investigate it, which takes several more hours or several more people's time. And then the police officer has to go back and write a report that might take an hour or 2. Instead, we need police officers on the ground fighting crime and preventing crime. And when police officers tell me that this is a waste of money and a waste of their time is more important than the 250,000. I'm not supporting it anyway. Thank you.
Can I respond to that, Mr.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. I've heard, both sides. Councilman Carlson, Councilman Goods. Councilman Goods is a former police officer, so he's got more experience than others. You know, there's a saying that says when seconds count, police are minutes away. And this is a tool in the toolbox that will allow officers a little extra help. Another thing is, and Councilman Carlson brought it up, is the shortage of police officers. We've all been receiving the emails from the PIO of violent crime shootings, deaths in the city of Tampa. Either I wasn't paying attention, or we have a violent crime issue in the city of Tampa, which means we need one of two things: more technology, expand the ShotSpotter program, because as Ybor City was mentioned, Ybor City's had some issues. I'm hearing it a few times a week, not every day, but a few times a week. It's shooting, gun, there's something. And I know we're trying to do our best, but at the same time, I don't think we have enough police officers in the city of Tampa. If you look back, I want to say during the Friedman administration, I think there was a proposed millage increase, and that's what they did at the time, to get funding to hire more police officers. Perhaps something we need to look at is bringing more. I know we swore in quite a few new officers the other day, but the city of Tampa is growing, and maybe that's what it is. I mean, we have, about 1,000 sworn officers, give or take, if my numbers, if I'm remembering correctly. Maybe we need to hire more officers to aid the existing officers, to have better response time, whatever it takes to make the city safer. So I'm not against this program. I see the benefits of it, because if you can save one life, if you can solve one more crime, whatever it takes, but at the same time, we need more manpower. So I'll stop there, but I appreciate all the comments. Thank you.
Chief Johnson, give me 1 second. Councilman Goode, you want to respond?
Yes, sir. All the things Mr. Carlson says are valid. The problem you have is this, and I did not know ShotSpotter wasn't all over the city. That's a problem. We can't say we want to do one area when all of the councilmen know that we're getting calls all over the city. That's unfair to the citizens. That's unfair. People can say, well, it's been racist, whatever. We don't want those kind of things. If we have it in one area, it should be all over the city. That's number one. I understand we cost available, but you can't pinpoint one place and not do something other. Ybor is spiking. Other areas of the city are having shootings as well. Up in the Springs, the north end of town, they've got shootings as well. You can look at them. We want to look at stats. Let's look at the numbers. So, Mr. Carlson, you're right about that on that point. Got to give you that one. I've received calls from veteran officers who, what happened, gentlemen, the drop program became good to police officers, you understand? So when that cycle comes out, you have a mass exodus of police officers, mass exodus. So we're not recruiting and refilling those spots before that drop comes. So now the actual question is, and some officers have told me to ask these questions, which I already know those kind of answers, but why having this council ask those questions? Number one, how many actual sworn personnel do we have? Because you have sworn personnel, but within that sworn personnel, you have maybe 200, maybe 300 detectives that aren't doing street patrol. Now you have other officers who may be sworn personnel that may end up being in a specialized area who are not doing actual beat control, as you call it. So now we go to the squad. You have a sergeant, a corporal. Used to be, you maybe had a fat squad, we call it, maybe 12 officers at a time. Maybe. Now, let's go a day to where you have officers who might take a vacation. Somebody calls in sick, or someone gets hurt. Now that fat squad goes down to maybe 7 or 8. Now let's go say it's a bad day, or there's a need for some officers to be someplace else, or they're pulling for parades, they're pulling here. Now that fat squad goes down to maybe just filling zones. And now when you fill zones, there are 4 areas in a zone. So you may be Lincoln 1 will be the sergeant, Lincoln 21 maybe the corporal, then you have within that zone we call area 3, 4, whatever, okay? And now that's your squad. Now let's to what we call killer zone. Killer zone means that now I'm down a zone. So now that corporal is probably going to fill that zone, because now you've got to be able to try to fill each one of those areas. If the corporal may be pulled, maybe the other squad supervisor is out on vacation. Now that corporal becomes an acting person for that other squad over there. So now you've just pulled another person. We talk about numbers, that's how it works. So now you talk about a night shift or evening shift where we try to overlap them. The problem is the manpower is down. We can't use the adage of how many officers per capita per city. That's the stat game again. You have to look at your city action and see, well, what is your need? But then you're going to have some people right now, we have a housing crisis. You're going to have communities that say, we don't need more police, you're giving them more money already. So here's your double-edged sword again. No, but people are saying, my crime is going up. Do something about my crime. I got Miss Frankie and them over there on Chelsea at 34th. You got other areas saying, where are the police? We don't see the police. Well, hell, you can't see the police if I only got 3 guys working a zone that night. So now if I get a shooting or a homicide, all those guys that we're talking about, all 3 of those guys got to go work that homicide, and then you got a sister squad, maybe from the other sector, may have to come down to help what we call field calls. Now they're not from that area, but now they got to take those calls in that area for service. So let's say you have 2 shootings, which is known to happen, where you got 2 crime scenes. So you got to pull a person from maybe a sector. And maybe it needs to be a training, and I'll make a motion that the police department comes and explains to the public how the police department works. How is a sector created? A sector, you sector E. But within that sector, you have 2 areas there. You have a major who's the commander of that district. Now I got a captain, 2 captains. One may be sector D, one do sector E. And then you have your numbers. So I think maybe we'll make a motion and you come and explain how the police department operates so the public can really know your challenges, so they always won't say, well, what does the police do? We're just giving them more money. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I came in the middle of this, but I feel I can comment on it. You know, we talk about police shortage and fewer police. I mean, I don't have the stats to back it, but I'd be willing to bet something that we've had a lot of retirements because there's a lot of disillusionment probably among police officers. And a lot of folks in the last 2.5 years have felt attacked and overburdened. We've had a lot of mass unrest. We've had COVID-19. We've had a lot of different challenges for police officers. That to me is open and obvious. And I think that we're talking about having fewer police. You got to mention that. I mean, I on a lot of these issues, I'd like to hear, and obviously, God bless you guys, but I'd love to hear from the rank and file every single day police officers on why we're not having more police officers in the city of Tampa. I got a feeling that my reckoning is going to be on point here. You know, when it comes to this issue that we're talking about, this program, is it? Let me ask you all this: is it only in East Tampa or is it North Tampa? Because you know, Councilman Carlson mentioned New Tampa. Is any of it part of it in North Tampa, Sulphur Springs, et cetera?
Let me address that. When ShotSpotter first started and we got it, we only had a certain amount of funding. And we only had a certain area that we can put it in based on the funding. What we did is went back and looked at our stats as far as firearms being shot and where they were occurring at. We had 2 sectors, Sector E, which is in District 3, and Sector D in District 2, to where they're kind of comparable in the gunfire throughout the city of Tampa. So what we did then is with USF, Sector D was used for like a comparison study. They didn't have ShotSpotter, Sector E did. There is financially, to have it initially without doing that study throughout the whole city of Tampa wouldn't have been reasonable and wouldn't have been smart. When you look at our violent crime firearm numbers, you'll be able to find out where they're occurring at. And that's where ShotSpotter was located, was based on the number of gunfires that we have and where in the city.
And if I may, sir. So, yeah, I mean, my view on this is, as Councilman Maniscalco said, it's a good tool in the toolbox. It does require, obviously, some folks have said, you know, everything has its excess, and things that mean well can go wrong and have unintended consequences that we could all improve on and that could cause a lot of challenges, et cetera. So I think oversight on this is something that is good, but I think abandoning it this time would probably be unwise. But oversight, I think, is obviously warranted. That's all. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilman Miranda.
Thank you very much. It's not that the city of Tampa has a need for more officers. When you look across the country, that we're not anemia to that. The whole country's like that. I think it was Seattle the other day, I saw on TV, they give a bonus, and I forgot what the bonus was, but it was in the thousands of dollars for you to come become a police officer there. And at one time, I think Miami and us were the two highest in police officers per population in Florida. I'm not sure about that, but I'm going back in memory. And Tampa had one police officer for how many people? I forget that figure also. So 1,000 or something? Yeah, it was one per 1,000. I forget exactly, but it was comparable with anyone else. I don't know what those figures are today or what the other cities are today, but we have something that's is like an epidemic without having an antidote to cure it, without having a bacteria spreading your body. We haven't had the whereabouts to find out what's causing it and how to cure it. But it goes out to, if you see this every day on the daily news, and the kids say, well, what do I want to be in that position for? What do I want to be here for? I can do something else. And that's what's happening in this country. Little by little, we are becoming eroded to the things that we need to help solve our problems that we have in the cities. And the county's the same way. But there's just a mentality that, you know, people are using guns more like chewing bubble gum. They think that's going to cure, you know, me having a gun and shooting somebody is like chewing gum. It doesn't happen that way. There's consequences on both sides. And when you kill someone, not only you and your family, what about the family that you personally just killed? What about them? What about the kids, the family? They're never going to see them, the grandkids. It's just a travesty and a hurt, and that no one can really say how it happened unless you're one of those that did. One of your family members got killed, and you just got married, and you had a baby on the way, and it's just tragic all the way down the line. So the problem, and I'm not a solver of mystery, but I can tell you that goes back from the time you're born. From what you see on television, what you see on the internet, you see people shooting every day, and the next day they see people back on TV on another show. So nobody really died. But they do die when you have that gun in your hand and you pull the trigger. And that's the problem we have in America. And it's going to have to be solved in a different manner than what we've been doing, because it's too easy to get whatever you're going to use to kill someone. But that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Just to address, because I hear talk about hiring officers and stuff, we just sworn a large class of officers, very diverse. I want you to understand that we have a training program, and we've been trying to catch up to our full strength for the past couple of years. We're very close right now, but I want you to understand that we put officers through a training program. We got to make sure they're prepared for the street. There's 5 phases that they have to go through. That can take up to 6 to 8 months. We're not going to hire somebody and put them out there without having a good foundation. Not that they're going to be perfect, but they're trained up to a level to where we feel comfortable they can give a good service out there. So Councilman Goods hit on a lot of it. When it comes down to people getting sick, military duty, sometimes they get pulled. Sometimes for a whole year fighting for our country. Sometimes they get hurt on duty, and they're light duty for like 4 or 5 or 6 months. You know, during COVID, we had whole squads get COVID, and they got to be quarantined for 10 days. So there's a lot of factors that go into managing the personnel real time every day in law enforcement, not just us, the fire department, wherever you may work at, based on what you're going through in your personal lives, injury, sickness, vacations, and everything. So we're doing a good job trying to catch up, you know, and hiring officers to be at full strength. But when you're talking to officers about them being short on certain squads and stuff, it's not that easy to explain what a city may go through at times. And Councilman Goods talked about it. If a homicide happens, or a bad traffic accident happens, or a bad domestic, or a hostage, that's gonna take extra resources. And it may take 2 or 3 hours to get that scene under control. We may pull from District 1, 2, or 3 just until we get things calmed down. So there's a lot that goes into policing. I want you to understand that we do a pretty good job at it. And we have a lot of officers from other agencies that want to come and work for Tampa. And there's a reason behind that. We're not perfect, but we're pretty good at what we do.
I want to make a motion do you want to make your comment first, or you want me to make a motion first?
Go ahead and make a motion, Councilman Cross.
And one other comment. In some of the briefings related to TPD, there's been a representative of the legal department, and I've asked the city attorney, keep in mind the charter says the city attorney represents the mayor, city council, departments, et cetera. There are times when a city attorney has to represent a department or the mayor, and I've asked that city attorney, if a representative of the city attorney is always going to be there representing TPD, that the city attorney also provide an attorney at each of these meetings that will be representing the city council. That is not just a duty of the city council attorney, but also the city attorney. But the motion is, I'd like to make a motion to have staff come back on January 19th to report to council on their plans to fill the 200 officer shortage and to reduce the violent crime rate.
Councilman Goods.
I accept it, but would you allow me to add to that motion, sir?
Yes, please.
If we're going to ask that, I would ask that the police department make a full presentation of the operational structures of the police department, how it operates, the manpower, the squads, how it functions, and that way the citizens can know the work you do. I say it all the time, we communicate bad in this city. It's like we're scared to tell the people what we do. We need to tell the people what the police department do. Whether people hate the police or like the police, they need to know the function of the police department, how many sworn detectives you have in each division, how many squads you have with officers, and what does a squad mean? How is a breakdown of a squad? What happens when there's an incident scene where sometimes where you're pulling from a district, but sometimes you have to pull from the sheriff's department, or there's a major accident on the interstate with FHP, that we got to go up there to shut the interstates down, so that takes away. You need to be able to explain those parameters of the police department so people can get a general gist of why you have shortages or where our shortages is and what the dollars and cents is going to take. What's the shortage to get us up to par, and not just per one officer per 1,000 per capita. What would really take to really secure this city and the needs of the city? So if you would bring that additional to what he's saying, if you'll take that friendly amendment, sir.
Could I, I'll just restate the motion if that's okay. And I forgot to mention staff and the police union. So I'd like to have staff and the police union present on January 19th about how to fill the 200 officer shortage and to reduce the violent crime rate, and to explain how TPD works so that the public can see.
Councilman Carlson, may I ask, is that under staff reports or is that under workshop? Because staff reports are only supposed to be 5 minutes long. If this is going to take, and I think it's probably, I would think that it would take more than 5 minutes. Can you please put it under a workshop?
January 26th.
Is that a workshop?
January 26th, yes.
And what does our agenda look like for January 26th?
Thank you. You have a calendar? Chairman, thank you.
I know I do.
Yes, you do, and so
But
does every council member as well.
I'm passing that baton to our city clerk.
Yes.
City,
Currently, you have 9 workshops and 1 staff report for January 26th.
we have another agenda item talking about that. Will that overburden?
I'm happy to put it on February 23rd.
Let's go with February 23rd, then,
Okay.
if you do not mind.
Yes,
Councilman
please, thank you.
Carlson. We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Is
Thank
there any objections? Now, if we can come back to this agenda item. Can we all come back to this agenda item, please? Is there any more comments or questions on agenda item number 6? What we're here talking about now. I have a question, please and thank you. We talked about, there was mention of funding for this project. How is this funding paid for? Is this a grant that must be used by the city of Tampa for this specific purpose? or does this come out of general funds?
I believe I came up here maybe a month ago for your vote on that general funding side of it. Overall, we try and get grants. They got initiated by grants. We're continually trying to get grants, not just to fund this, but many programs that we have.
Are the grants that we're receiving for this designed specifically to pay for this?
Yes, and at times, there's a timing period on when the grant get approved and when the funding gets there.
I know my point is, if we receive grant funding specifically designed for this, we can't spend it anywhere else. Am I correct on that assumption?
I believe so. I got my legal counsel, Megan Newcomb, here to answer that question.
Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning.
It's been a 4-year contract. The first 3 years were funded exclusively through grant funding. This last year, it was a renewal that when we came in September, we're under the last year of the contract, which is, I believe, June to June of 2023. It was partially funded with a grant and partially funded with general funds from 2023. Our anticipation and hope is to receive grant funding for the future of ShotSpotter, and of course, we have to bring that in front of council later in 2023.
When will we know that? By what date do you perceive we'll know that?
That's a good question. We've had discussions with the grant writer in the city who said that the likelihood is good, but I didn't ask her for a time frame. I would think if the contract expires in June that we would have to come here and know at least 3 or 4 months prior to that.
It is my opinion that that's the time we really need to discuss ShotSpotter.
Will do.
Because I would have objections with it if it totally came out of either the police budget or our general fund, which is combined. Councilman Carlson.
No, I think she, she clarified what I was going to say, which is that there's no guarantee of grant funding going forward. They try to get, as he said, they try to get grants for lots of things. There's no guarantee of it going forward. I think this initiated because the federal government offered some kind of grant to test it out. So it's kind of a beta test to see if it works. Trying technology is good, but if we have a shortage of police officers, we need to reduce the burden on the officers, not. And if they're going out with 360 calls, spending hours and hours where they could be actually solving crimes, I have a concern about that. Thank you.
And with that, Councilman Carlson, I will agree with you. If we can get funding for this, but the funding specifically is that we pay for the ShotSpotter with the funding, I'll accept that. If we have to pay for it out of pocket, I agree with you. And I hope that all will remember that during our budget discussion, the first thing I said is we need more staffing, especially in police and firefighters.
Thank you
Any
very
more
much.
questions or comments to this? Please, I apologize I interrupted you.
No, sir, I just said thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Any other Councilman Goods?
Chief, the motion has already been made. I just want to make sure that the presentation is thorough and it's uploaded enough time so the public and this council can view it, so if they have any questions for the workshop, so the public can know what police do and they can have their questions. I know when I see it, I'll know right off if it's structured in a way you're trying to hide something or you don't want the public to know something, I'm gonna know off the bat. So please structure it to a way the public can understand it, structure it to sort of understand what you do and the function and how we really operate from the command level all the way down to anybody in that personnel over that police department.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too. All right. Remember, Councilwoman Capeen fell down in there. Stop. Agenda item number 7.
Good morning, City Council. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, here before you on item number 7. I forwarded you a substitute resolution that ratified the appointment of Councilman Good's appointee, Allison Hewitt, and this was reviewed, the draft by the Budget Advisory Committee, and it's being presented for your consideration, Council.
Any comments or any questions to this resolution?
So moved.
The resolution that, I'm sorry, Councilman Miranda, the resolution that we have before us, staff had talked about adding Ms. Hewitt's name to it, so is there a substitute resolution?
Yes, and the clerk, you do have the substitute, is that correct?
No, move the substitute resolution.
Okay, I have a motion to move the substitute resolution by Councilman.
In the absence of Mr. Good, who is the policymaker in that.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Thank you. Agenda item number 8.
Yes, Council. Item number 8 is requesting a report on my advice regarding creating an ordinance to protect elected officials sued under Chapter 119. Council, I have had productive conversations with City Attorney Andrea Zellman on this as of recent. And I would say, Council, to share with you that this subject is frankly personal to me. I take this very seriously. And what I am asking for, Council, is the opportunity to meet with each of you individually between now and December 1st. The next, is it December 1st, Madam Clerk? Correct. The next regular meeting, and set up appointments with your staff to talk with you individually about this moving forward. And I'm requesting that continuance, please.
Move to continue item number 8 until December 1st, so that Mr. Shelby can, as stated, meet with council members individually to further discuss this.
Second.
A motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection?
Thank you.
Councilman Vieira, number 9 is your motion. However, out of courtesy to Councilwoman Hurtak, who is not here and wanted to have a special meeting to discuss some of these things, I would request that you might want to continue this until January 27th, when we are going to be having a workshop to discuss these things.
Sure, yeah, and my intent on doing this was to, for the obvious, as the motion stated, but yeah, I'm fine with that, and I would just encourage everyone to work, the relevant parties on ways, as I've seen today, have been done on efficiency, and that we can, that myself starting, everybody can improve on. But yes, sir, Mr. Chair, I'm glad to do that.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any objections? Thank you. Councilman Vieira.
Yes, sir. I move items 10 through 22.
We have a motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Goods, you have Parks and Recreation.
Items 20 through 20, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Carlson, would you please do Public Works?
I'd like to move items number 29 through 36.
A motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Miranda, you've got Finance.
So I move 37 through 42.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Carlson, you have Building and Zoning.
I'd like to move items 43 through 53.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Maniscalco, you have Transportation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I move items 54 through 57.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'd like to set items 58 and 59 for the public hearings. Item 58 is going to be for December 8th, 2022 at 5:01 p.m.
Second.
And item 59 will be December 1st, 2022 at 5:01 p.m.
Let's go with agenda item number 58. First, we have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 59, we have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. May I have a motion to open public hearings?
So moved, sir.
Motion made to open public hearings by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That's all of
Everything,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
up until 1:30.
Up until 1:30.
Well, you're not there for the 10:30s yet. You could do the 9:30s, please.
Up to the 9:30.
Up to number 70 then.
Thank you.
Like 2 minutes, right?
Gotta be within the law. Gotta wait. Rules and procedures. Rules and procedures. Agenda item number 60, file number BF 22-77365.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Council. McLean Evans, Assistant City Attorney. Item number 6 is the second public hearing for the Brownfield area designation for the Main Street Park. This is the final public hearing for this Brownfield area designation. The City of Tampa is requesting that this property be designated as a brownfield area in order to assist with the assessment and remediation of environmental impacts that may affect that property. Details of the designation have been outlined and documented in the staff report on Main Street proposed brownfield area designation, which is available for public review in the clerk's office. City staff has determined that all statutory and public notice requirements have been met and recommends that City Council approve this designation.
Is there any comments or any questions? Someone would like to move the resolution?
Move the resolution number 60,
Resolution.
file number BF 22/77365.
Yes, sir.
This is a public hearing.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to agenda item number 60, file number BF 22-77365? Seeing none, do we have anyone online? Thank you very much. Motion to close. Motion to close by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
There was a motion made by Councilman Miranda to move the resolution, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Agenda item number 61, file number E 2022-8, chapter 24. Good morning.
Good morning, Justin Vasky, Senior Assistant City Attorney. This is with regards to item 61 on the agenda. On October 6, 2022, City Council approved a resolution setting a public hearing for this resolution. This resolution states the City Council's intent to use the uniform method of levying and collecting non-ad valorem assessments by the City of Tampa in accordance with Section 197.362 Florida statutes for streetlights on a portion of North Rome Avenue lying within portions of Woodlawn Park, a subdivision of the City of Tampa. Section 197.3632 Florida statutes requires that the attached resolution be adopted at a public hearing, not after the hearing is closed. Therefore, please do not close the public hearing in connection with this item until you have voted on the proposed resolution. In the summer of 2023, we will bring to City Council a resolution which adopts the tax roll for this assessment. That is all. I'm here for any questions.
Anyone, any questions or comments from the council? Yes, he is. I see Mr. Mechanic is there. Do you have anything that you would like to add to this, Mr. Mechanic?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, council members. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I just would respectfully request council's approval and here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the, is there any questions for Mr. Mechanic? Anyone in chambers that would like to speak to this? I do not.
Second.
I do not see anybody on the line. Motion to move the resolution by Councilman Maniscalco.
Do we open the public hearing for this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Motion to move the resolution by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Is there any opposed?
Motion closed, please.
Motion closed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 62, file number CDD 22-77670. Ms. Johnson Velez.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, City Council, Susan Johnson Velez, Senior Assistant City Attorney. Council, this is a second reading on an ordinance creating the K-Bar Ranch CDD 3. This was requested, establishment of this CDD was requested by the applicants, Cruz and Douglas. Their representative may be online. I'm not sure. No?
Yes, Mr. Mackey is online,
Ms.
however,
Ms.
I'm not
Mackey.
able to elevate him. If he's on a cell phone, it is not gonna allow me to move him over, unfortunately.
I think they're just on public comment.
So this did receive unanimous approval by City Council on first reading. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to
Is there any
answer them.
questions
But
for Ms. Johnson Velez? Do we have an applicant online? Mr. Mackey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm not able to elevate him, so I'm not sure if it's a web issue or if he's on a cell phone, but I'm not able to elevate him.
this is a legislative matter, Council, so I don't know if you were able to.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to agenda item number 62, file number CDD 22-77670?
Move to close.
Hey,
You got somebody there to speak.
madam, are you wanting to speak to this agenda item? Please come forward to the podium.
Not necessarily agenda item, I would just like to have a word, please, shortly.
Ma'am, we've already had public comment, so unless you're gonna speak to a specific agenda item, our public comment has been over.
Okay, all right then. I'm a little late for everything and still no room to speak. Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
I can, if you want, Mr., I can speak to her outside. If you want to speak outside, I can, but just go ahead.
Is there anyone that wishes to speak to agenda item number 62, file number CDD 22-77670?
Second.
Motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Place your votes and record. Yes, I'm sorry. Councilman Carlson, could you read agenda item number 6?
62.
62, thank you.
Yes, sir, I'd like to move item number 62, file number CDD 22-77670, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Tampa, Florida, establishing the K-Bar Ranch 3 Community Development District, generally located north and east of Meadow Point Boulevard Extension, west of Morris Bridge Road, and south of the Hillsborough-Pasco County line, comprising 372.204 acres of land, more or less, for the purpose of managing and delivering basic community infrastructure improvements. Said district to be located entirely within the boundaries of the City of Tampa, the same being more particularly described in Section 2 hereof, pursuant to Chapter 190 Florida statutes, naming the district and the initial members of the District Board of Supervisors consenting to the exercise of certain special powers by the District Board of Supervisors pursuant to subsection 190.0122 Florida statutes, providing for severability, providing effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Place your votes and record.
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent at vote and Hurtak being absent.
It is not showing up on monitors.
So she said on the record. It failed to record by us, but
Yes, but there we go.
There you go. Is this something, this is a new setup?
That's not right, because there wasn't 7 people that voted. Just, please, may we have a roll call vote, please?
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira? Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak? Carlson?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent at vote and Hurtak being absent.
Thank you. Agenda item number 63, file number CIP and CIS 2023-2027.
Susan Johnson Velez, Senior Assistant City Attorney. I'm not sure if there's Planning Commission staff on the line, but Council, this is an amendment to the comprehensive plan that updates and replaces the existing capital improvement section by replacing the FY 2022 through FY 2026 capital improvement section schedule of projects with the updated FY 23 through 27 schedule of projects. This did receive unanimous approval by City Council on first reading.
Any comments or questions for staff? Do we have a representative here?
Yes, sir. Diego Guerra, Planning Commission staff. Again, this is just a annual update to the capital improvement section that replaces the capital improvement schedule of projects in the capital improvement section within the comprehensive plan. This is an annual update. It is allowed to be conducted by ordinance per Chapter 163 of Florida statute. If you have any specific questions regarding the update, I'm available for questions. I do want to mention that the schedule of projects is projects within the capital improvements program that address levels of service. Those projects were approved by council and were brought to you with the capital improvements program, and the schedule of projects are those projects within the capital improvements program that address levels of service only.
Any comments or questions? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to agenda item number 63? No one is registered?
Move to close.
Motion closed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance amending the Imagine 2040 Tampa Comprehensive Plan Capital Improvement Section by replacing the fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2026 capital improvement section schedule of projects with the fiscal year 2023 through fiscal year 2027 capital improvement section schedule of projects, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. Let's try this again. Place your votes and record. Can we go with roll call, please?
Goods?
Yes.
Vieira? Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak? Carlson?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent and vote and Hurtak being absent.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to make a motion to open items 71. It's a 10:30 public hearing, and then we got to swear everybody in.
Yes. Second. A motion by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. And thank you. That way we can swear everyone in at the same time. Anyone who is going to be giving any testimony to any other agenda items today, would you please stand to be sworn in?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth? I do.
Thank you. Agenda item number 64, file number VAC 22-19. Mr. Salmon.
Los Angeles Development Coordination, presenting file number VAC 22-19. This is a proposed vacating request for a second reading and adoption. It's a proposed vacating request to vacate the alleyway located north of Ohio Avenue, south of Indiana Avenue, east of Poplar Avenue, and west of Myrtle Avenue. I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Salmon?
James Hennessy, 812 West Indiana.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Is there any questions for petitioner? Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this? Motion closed by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilman Goods.
Mr. Chairman, file number VAC 22-19, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning that alleyway located north of Ohio Avenue, south of Indiana Avenue, east of Poplar Avenue, and west of Myrtle Avenue, within the plat of North Riverside in the City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, as more particularly described in Section 2 hereof, subject to certain covenants, conditions, and restrictions, as more particularly set forth herein, providing for enforcement and penalties for violation, providing for definition, interpretation, and repeating conflicts, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, I don't even want to try a third time for a charm. Let's do roll call vote.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Viera?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak? And Citro.
Yes,
Motion carried unanimously with Hurtak being absent.
thank you. Agenda item number 65, file number VAC 22-24.
Ross Amos, Development Coordination, presenting file number VAC 22-24. This proposed vacating request for second reading and adoption. This proposed vacating request is for portions of Arch Street and Edison Avenue, rights of way located north of Cass Street, south of LaSalle Street, east of Monroe Street, and west of North Boulevard. I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Sammons? Petitioner?
I apologize. I did speak with the applicant this morning. Mr. Harden's out of the country, and Mrs. Catherine Coyle had a medical emergency, family medical emergency. She did speak with me this morning, and she is unavailable at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone in chambers who wishes to speak to agenda item number 65?
So move to close.
Motion closed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Chairman. File number 65, VAC 22/24. An ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance in the City of Tampa, Florida, vacating, closing, discontinuing, and abandoning those portions of Arch Street, Edison Avenue, rights of way located north of Cass Street, south of LaSalle Street, east of Monroe Street, and west of North Boulevard within the plat of Monroe's and Cluis addition to West Tampa and no subdivision in the City of Tampa, Florida, Hillsborough County, as more particularly described in sections 2 thereof, subject to certain covenants, conditions, and restrictions, and more particularly set forth within, providing for enforcement of penalties and violation, providing for definition, interpretation, and repeating conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Viera?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak? Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes,
Motion carried unanimously with Hurtak being absent.
thank you. File, agenda item number 66, file number REZ 22-124.
Morning, Council. Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Item number 66 is REZ 22-124, being presented for second reading and adoption for 1701 East Bush Boulevard. The request is to rezone the property from IG Industrial General to CI Commercial Intensive. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Barr? Thank you. Petitioner?
Thank you, Council. My name is Jairus Barbie, land use
Mr.
planner
Barbie,
with Avid Group.
don't mean to interrupt you. Would you please raise your right hand to be sworn in?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Sorry, Jairus Barbie, land use planner with Avid Group, address 2300 Curlew Road, Palm Harbor, Florida. I just want to say thank you for allowing us to be here today, and I agree with everything as previously presented, and I'm here if there are any questions.
Any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak to agenda item number 66? Thank you.
Second.
Motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Carlson?
item number 66, or file number REZ 22-124, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 1701 East Bush Boulevard in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification IG industrial general to CI commercial intensive, providing effective date.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak? Carlson? Goods? Viera? And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Goods being absent at vote and Hurtak being absent.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 67, file number AB2-22-17.
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Item number 67 is AB 2217, being presented for second reading and adoption for special use 2 for alcoholic beverage sales for a restaurant for on-premises consumption of beer, wine, and liquor located at 951 East 7th Avenue. Site plans were dropped off at City Hall earlier this week. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Barnes? Petitioner.
Good morning, City Council. My name is Jane Graham. I represent Los Chapos and Nicole Thompson. We appreciate the recommendation, and we're here for any questions.
Any questions for the petitioner? Thank you. Is there anyone in the chambers that wishes to speak to this? No one is online either.
Second.
Motion to close by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Vieira.
Yes, sir.
I move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption ordinance approving a special use permit S2 for alcoholic beverage sales, restaurant consumption on premises only, and making lawful the sale of beverages regardless of alcoholic content, beer, wine, and liquor on that certain lot, plot, tract of land located at 951 East 7th Avenue, Tampa, Florida, as more particularly described in section 3, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinance in conflict are repealable, repealing ordinance number 2007-195, providing an effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Hurtak? Carlson? Goods?
Yes.
Viera? Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Hurtak being absent.
Thank you, Council.
Agenda item number 68, file number AB 2-22-18.
Thank you, Council. Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Item number 68 is AB 2218, being presented for second reading and adoption for a special use 2 for alcoholic beverage sales for a large venue for consumption on premises, off premises consumption of beer, wine, and liquor located at 3924 West Spruce Street. Site plans were dropped off at City Hall earlier this week. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Barnes? Petitioner.
Good morning, Council. Chris Berg with the law offices, Gray Robinson, 2700, or 401 East Jackson Street, Suite 2700. We were just asked between first and second reading to make some slight changes to the site plan. We did that and dropped them off at Development Services. Unless Council has any questions, we ask for your approval.
Any questions or comments for petitioner? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this?
Vote to close.
Motion closed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an ordinance approving a special use permit SU2 for alcoholic beverage sales, large venue consumption on premises, and package sales off premises consumption, and making lawful the sales of beverages regardless of alcoholic content, beer, wine, and liquor, at or from that certain lot, plot, or tract of land located at 3924 West Spruce Street, as more particularly described in section 3, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict are repealed, repealing ordinance number 2019-92, providing an effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Viera?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak? And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Hurtak being absent.
Thank you. Agenda item number 69, file number AB 2-22-19.
Thank you, Council. Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Item number 69 is AB 22219, being presented for second reading and adoption for a special use 2 for alcoholic beverage sales for large venue consumption on premises and package sales off premises consumption for beer, wine, and liquor located at 450 Channelside Drive. Site plans were dropped off at City Hall earlier this week. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Barnes? Petitioner.
Good morning. Julie Mandel with the law firm of Gray Robinson for, 610 East Jackson Street. Sorry, I forgot my address. I'm here on behalf of the petitioner. I understand that Ms. Hertog is in travel on flight right now, but that she may have the opportunity to call in at 1:30. So if that's the case, I think if council would indulge us holding this until 1:30, that may be an approach we can take.
I have one question. Maybe it might resolve the issue. I voted no against this, and my specific reasoning was for the package sales.
I understand that.
And this is going to be a massive, in my opinion, a massive place, which is neither here nor there. However, if the council, do you wish to say something before I proceed?
It's the kind of thing that may be appropriate to discuss it now, as the public hearing is open.
Public hearing is open. That's the reason why I'm discussing this. My point being, has the applicants decided to change their mind on the package sales part of this?
If I could just take just a moment to explain, because I really did just get involved in this. It is my understanding that the reason the package sales was included as part of this application is because there was some confusion over the state law as it related to go alcohol beverage with food. Under state law, package sales isn't allowed under the state license as it relates to restaurant sales. The applicant was simply seeking the opportunity to have to-go sales as part of their state license and has no intent to do what I would consider like a retail package establishment. The problem is, because I've spent some time pondering this and talking with legal and with staff about it, is from a timing perspective, because it is part of the title of the ordinance, the only option is to take this back to first reading. And unfortunately, this application was out for a long time, and they have to get in, they're in construction now. So from a timing perspective, that would be a challenge. And I can have them speak to that a little bit further. I mean, I can say for the record, there is no intent for that to be a package sales. And I have also discussed this with the underlying property owner, which is SPP. And they actually have given me a letter of support. They don't have any intention to do package sales. It was just, I think, a miscommunication as it related to the state law.
We all know about good intentions. I would rather have it in writing. Having said that, is there any objection to moving this to the 1:30? Would someone make a motion?
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
See you at 1:30.
Thank you.
We had agenda item number 70.
Yep.
Thank you, Council. Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Item number 70 is AB 22224, being presented for second reading and adoption for a special use 2 for alcoholic beverage sales for a small venue, consumption on premises and package sales off premises, consumption of beer, wine, and liquor at 1602 West Snow Avenue. Site plans were dropped off at City Hall earlier this week. I'm available for any questions if needed.
Any questions for Ms. Barnes? Thank you. Petitioner.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, but we cannot see you. We have to see you.
Yes.
And we
Hello.
need, thank you.
Good
but
morning. My name is Elizabeth Keller.
We need both of you to be sworn in. Please raise your right hands and be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Petitioner, please.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Keller, here from Shoemaker Loop and Kendrick, 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 2800, Tampa, Florida, 33602. We rest on our presentation on October 27th. I'm here for any questions, and we respectfully request your approval.
Okay, any questions for the petitioner? Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to agenda item number 70? I do not see anyone online.
Move to close. Second.
Motion closed by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Goods.
AB 2-2224. Ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance an ordinance approving a special use permit SU2 for alcoholic beverage sales, small venue, consumption on premises, and package sales / off-premises consumption, and making lawful the sale of beverages regardless of alcohol content, beer, wine, and liquor, at or from that certain lot, plot, or tract of land located at 1602 West Snow Avenue, as particularly described in Section 3, providing that all ordinance or parts of ordinance in conflict are repealed. Repealing ordinance number 2021-43, providing effective date.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Viera? Miranda?
Yes.
Pertec? Carlson?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Pertec being absent.
Thank you very much. We're now going into our 10:30 hearings. Agenda item number 71, file number VAC 22-14.
Good morning, Council. Ron Wigington, Legal Department. This is a continuation for with the first hearing that was held on October 20th. And as a recap, I'd like to basically go over what happened during that hearing. Presentations were made by myself, Mr. Ross Salmons, and Mr. Steve Michelini on behalf of the applicant. After that, you held public comments whereby 7 speakers spoke. During public comments, there was some issues that were presented regarding what actions or inaction that may have been taken by the Code Enforcement Department, the Neighborhood Enhancement Department, and what efforts were made by the city Mobility Department to open up the alleyway. Council has some questions for staff who were not present at that time, so I've requested all the staff members that were mentioned to be present to answer any of your questions you may have. However, I would like to emphasize or remind City Council that the primary issue here is whether the vacating of this alleyway serves the public interest. And there's 4 primary factors to consider when making that determination. And they include, will the vacating alleviate or relieve the public from the cost of maintaining the right-of-way? Will the vacating alleviate a public nuisance or curtail criminal activity? Will the vacating foster redevelopment? And will an abutting property owner's access to their property be completely cut off or substantially diminished? I'd also like to remind City Council that public comments were not closed, so it's really a matter of how we go from here. Whether you'd like to have Mr. Salmons give a quick summary of his presentation, whether you want to jump right into public comments, or whether you have any questions for staff now that you would like for them to address.
What is the pleasure of
I'd
council?
like to hear the presentation from Mr. Simons. It's been a while. We really can't.
Agree. Mr. Chairman.
Ross Salmons, Development Coordination, presenting file number VAC 22-14. Proposed vacating request is to vacate the alley lying north of Stroud Avenue, south of Chicago Avenue, east of Carolina Avenue, and west of Moody Avenue. This application was originally filed March 16th of 2022. The applicant owns property located south of the alley requested to be vacated. The applicant's reason for the application is to clean up the unused alley. Alley was created by subdivision plat. The existing right-of-way is approximately 7,300 square feet. Again, the alley in yellow, west to east, north to south. Here's Stroud, Chicago Avenue, Carolina Avenue, and Moody is here. This is the city right-of-way atlas sheet showing the alley in pink here. And it shows previously vacated rights-of-way in the past here, south of Stroud, and also north of Chicago Avenue here. Here is the original plat of C.B. Shaw's that dedicated the alleyway in Block 2 of C.B. Shaw's, and this is the right-of-way that is requested to be vacated. Here is Chicago Avenue subdivision, north of the alley that's requested to be vacated. And again, the boundaries of this subdivision, the north boundary here, south boundary is on the north side of the existing right-of-way. The applicant's property looking north from Stroud Avenue. This is the north and south section of the alley requested to be vacated looking north from Stroud Avenue. This is looking east from Carolina Avenue, and the general area of the alleyway is here. Staff have no objections to the vacating request. Easement reservations are needed for wastewater, stormwater, TECO, Frontier, and Spectrum. Natural resources comply with Chapter 27 in regard to tree preservation and site design for any improvements. And that's all I have. I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Sanders?
Ron Wigington, Legal Department. Just as a supplement to Mr. Ross's presentation, the stormwater easement is no longer needed. Stormwater Department has revisited that issue and declared that they don't need to have the easement. So between first and second reading, that reservation will be removed from the ordinance.
Do we have the petitioner here?
Good morning, Council. Steve Michelini. As the staff and the city attorney's already pointed out, there's no longer a public purpose that's being served by this alley. It does facilitate additional development on Stroud for redevelopment of some properties on the west end of the alley, of what is currently the alley. It also proposes, or at least it will cause the city to have maintenance issues and costs that are not associated with an alley that's obstructed and it's unused. The property on the north side was replatted in 1987, and during that replatting process, they did not include the alley, which, as the staff has pointed out, did not include the alley to the south, which only now services the properties along Stroud. It does not service, in a plat sense, does not service the properties on the north side, which is Chicago. I showed you a number of pictures, and the staff has already pointed out to you again that the alley's obstructed, it's unused. The easements will be reserved for the various utilities, so that will continue. There were some comments about the difficulties and the hardships created by the design of the townhouses. Those are self-imposed hardships and have nothing to do with the alley vacating itself. There's only one gate currently from the north side that accesses the alley, and the remaining of the properties are all fenced in, and there's an elevated concrete masonry wall on the along the alley on the north side. In addition to that, there's a reservation for a drainage easement and stormwater reservation on the north side of 20 feet. And I don't know what else I can add to you. The staff is supporting this as opposed to if they had concerns or objections, it wouldn't be before you in this manner. We are respectfully requesting that you proceed with the vacating of this and that we will reserve the easements as requested by the city. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, or I can go through the rest of the photographs that we presented to you previously. But however, I'll leave it up to the council. We believe that we have met all the criteria established by the city regarding the vacating. They concur that it is unused, and certainly the cost of maintaining that. I've already discussed this with transportation. They have no intention whatsoever of improving this alley area if it remains open. So,
Any comments or questions? Is there anyone in chambers that wishes to speak to agenda item number 71?
Good morning. My name is Kim Price. I'm at 2410 West Chicago Avenue. The Stroud owners weighed in on their general feeling regarding the alley, but what we choose to do or not do on our property, it's just none of their business. And what transpires on our side of the fence is also none of their business. But we deserve space between the properties because we don't want the obvious liability or the burden associated with Stroud owners using our fence as their own. We deserve access to the rear of our properties for repair, remodeling, deliveries, access to utilities, or whatever we want. Our townhomes are attached. That alley was brought in for our use. Whether we use it all the time, whether we use it frequently or infrequently, does not matter. Without it, we have zero access, which is number 4 on the city's criteria, which is what is the hardship that it will do to us. We will have one entrance in and out of our front property. We are attached. I won't elaborate, but the Stroud owners have said, you know, we're happy to give you access. So I'm going to ask you to just look at Exhibit A, which is the one and only communication initiated by a Stroud homeowner to me in regard to the removal of the tree, which was not mine nor on my property. I'll let you decide if this tone, the intent of the exchange, and if this would give you any positive feelings about their willingness to help, be helpful, given on how they feel, the entire hood apparently feels. And heaven forbid I need access to do something they don't want me to do. Well, we don't like what you want to do, so we're not going to let you go. So this is the conversation that was given to me. I'm in green, by the way. All of the verbal volleyball that I've done with Stroud Owners, it's in your front of you if you want to read it, but they're grasping at straws. They're begging for forgiveness because at no time did they bother to ask for permission or permits regarding the structures or the encroachments in the alleyway. If anything, they're painting themselves benevolent in allowing us access. I would challenge anybody here, anybody in the city of Tampa who's a fee simple owner that cannot access their backyards. We're not an HOA. We're not condos. We own our property. So Chicago Avenue's residents, we're now in the position of defending ourselves. We've done nothing wrong. We've broken no city or county laws. We've committed no illegal acts. I don't know how the vacation got traction when I personally have tried, obviously unsuccessful, to regain access to the alley long before Champa Bay came around. At the end of the day, the placement of accessory structures is unlawful. Permits were not issued because we would just ask that you not only vote no to vacating the alley, but citing the Stroud Avenue homeowners for their encroachment and enforcing compliance. I believe that you have people here that can attest to what I've been trying to do for the last 2 years. Any questions?
I just have one. From the last time we heard this, my memory serves me, the fence
We have a removable vinyl fence, correct. And what I look at in the back of my property.
May I finish my question, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
The fence is on top of a concrete wall.
Retention wall that was made by the developer for water situations.
Thank you. That's, you
Yeah,
answered
it's
my
a
question.
retention
You
wall
answered
done
my
for the
question.
Stroud Avenues.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, council members.
My name is Laura Bruiser, and I reside at 2412 West Chicago Avenue. And I just took possession of my property in August of this year. So I can't speak to anything that's happened in the past, but I can tell you as a new homeowner, access to the city-owned alley would be important to me. Lack of access, even over the last couple months, has been problematic. With the hurricane and a broken down fence I had to remove, the hurricane debris had to be wrapped up in a blanket and taken out through my house. You can imagine the mess of that. I plan on renovating my backyard in the future, so rear access to the property would be beneficial in implementing this. Here's a copy of the survey that I received prior to my closing, August 12th it was done. As you can clearly see, it does show that 12-foot alley behind my home. There is no obstruction in any way on it. I would very much like to install a gate in the back of my property to be able to exit with construction supplies and debris if needed. I cannot put a gate into somebody else's backyard. To me, it is not reasonable that access to the rear of our property is only at the will of a neighbor to grant me access. If that neighbor withholds consent for any reason, I have no access to the back of my property. What if there's an emergency? What if they're away or they move and somebody else is just not as nice to allow that? This alley was in place for a reason. It is advantageous to us as property owners with no side access to have front and rear access to our properties. I don't know how long the alley has been this way and used by the neighbors, but the city of Tampa was negligent in allowing that. I'm asking that the city council not allow it any further and that the alleyway be reinstated so it can be used yet again. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Goods.
Ross, you never show actual photos of that alley. I want to see those photos of that alley. You show diagrams. I want to see actual visual photos of that alley.
You want to see actual visual photos?
I want to see the photos of the alley.
Well,
I thought didn't you present that last time to us, the actual photos of the alley?
No, because I'm unable to get into the properties. It's fenced off.
We saw photos last time. I'm sure.
Yeah, I can show you what photos I have, sure. This is just an aerial first. The townhome boundary is on the north side of the alley here. And then in this section here also. Let me bring up other pictures. Hang on one second.
Yeah, I thought we had some other photos. Maybe it was position had the photos.
This picture I'm going to show you is from here, standing on Carolina Avenue, looking east.
If I may, Mr. Goods, I remember photos also of people that built like barbecue pits.
The actual survey itself.
Those sort of things in the alley.
I have that. So I'll show you the first page of the survey. Here's the survey. This is the alley that is requested to be vacated. This is the south boundary of Chicago Avenue subdivision. And again, it's only showing half of that subdivision. This is Chicago Avenue here and Stroud here. Okay. Second page of the survey that was completed by the city surveyor.
And the opposition is saying if you close, we close the alley, they can't get in the alley to their property. Is that correct?
Correct. This is the north and south section here. Again, it's showing some pavers here. This is a wood shed here, two plastic sheds here. Looks like a fire pit here on the west end. And some pavers.
Councilman Goods, are you completed with your questions? Then I'm going to go to Councilman Carlson, and I'll come back to Councilman Miranda. Councilman Carlson.
Public's not supposed to speak up, but I heard someone say that they had photos. Are legal, are we allowed to ask the public to show their photos, or?
Again, most of the speakers who have already spoken, this is the second time they have spoken. If you want to bring them back up and ask if they had the photos, it'll be at council's pleasure.
Do we need to make a motion, or could I just ask?
Councilman Carlson, you're asking for the speaker to show, any speaker that has spoken already for photos?
Just to answer Mr. Good's question.
So moved.
Gentlemen, ladies, behind the podium, ladies, do you have photos?
Yes.
Please, would you like to submit your photos?
Yes.
Thank you. And ma'am, have you spoken yet?
Not yet.
Are you going to speak?
Yes.
Please proceed. Councilman Miranda, I'm sorry. Do you
No,
have
I'm sorry, I was gonna ask for the photo.
Okay. We're there.
Because you asked for the photos and in the essence of time, I'm gonna try to pull those out separately. Really quick, I'll show, I think this is the right. Bridget Mace, 2420 West Chicago. Apologize. So, really quick, this is just a street view of the townhomes from the front so that you can see that they're attached, and how our biggest issue with the petition is the fact that we've been trying to work with the city in enforcing compliance of the Stroud residents because they have violated it through encroachments and taking over the alley and putting up fences. So we've been working on that for a year and a half. So our biggest issue is that we thought we were moving forward. We were told they would be cited. They never were. They weren't forced to be compliant, and we've been asking for access for a long time because of the burdens and issues that it's caused. So just to show you, that's why our biggest thing is just having rear access to the property. As far as the photos that I think that you would maybe want to see, this is just kind of giving you an idea of the picture on it. There was a Chicago resident that needed a tree removed. It was a tree site. The city arborist looked at it. It was up for removal, and in order to access that tree, they had to ask permission from a Stroud resident to go through their yard because the alley would technically be behind the fence. And the alley's not there because they've took over and assumed 12 foot of the entire alley and put up their own accessory structures. And then just to show you what this causes, from our perspective, there's a lot of debris or construction that goes on that we need access. The only way to remove this from your house is actually to physically walk through your entire house and out the front door or garage. You cannot get to it because they have assumed and invaded the alley. Another picture, just we have a homeowner right now that has a project going on in the rear, and this is showing you actually a picture of their driveway because they have nowhere else to take this other than through their house to get to the back in order to, pursue this project that they have. What you're maybe referring to from a picture would be, move to that one, this is actually the petitioner's backyard, who is a developer and owns this property, who wants to build townhomes. So this isn't an alley that's unused. I mean, it's very clear from looking at these pictures, it's clearly used and enjoyed by the Stroud residents. They have cut off our access, which is really our challenge here. And so we have been pursuing this to try to get this. This is why we're against the petition, because we really just want it reinstated. If you want to see any other encroachments, there's some pictures. You can see what's behind there. You can see structures in the back. And I have provided copies of this and will submit it to you as well.
Are you finished, ma'am?
Any other questions? I mean, I think really just the point is that we feel like we were working with the city. We were told that they would be cited, these encroachments would be removed. So we thought we were moving forward. And then the petition came up, and this is really just for a developer to build townhomes while you would be cutting off permanent access to the rear of our property. And as far as the fences, there's plenty of fences plenty of fences on alleys in Tampa, and no one's really encroached those, and you still have access. And the reason why we replaced our wood fence with a vinyl fence was so we could add gates.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman
Thank you.
Goods.
Ma'am, that's my point. I want to know, you say the neighbors have made complaints to code enforcement in reference to the alley?
Yes, and we had submitted last time, there's at least 15 pages of documentation with different city departments and staff. And we were even told by code enforcement that they were going to cite the residents, and that never happened.
All right, it's code enforcement here. I see the director back there. I'd like them to come up, Mr. Chairman.
Call them up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Council. Kevin Amos, District Supervisor.
Mr. James, tell me about this alley and tell me about what code enforcement responsibility was in reference to the complaints of the residents in reference to the alley, and what action did we take or we didn't take?
Yes, sir. When the initial complaint came in, we were very sympathetic to everything that you heard this morning. We sought guidance from legal. There was a lot of discussion about the possibility of vacating. At the time, there was no sense of urgency regarding the encroachments. It was a lot of expensive personal property. So anticipating a vacating petition, we held off until that vacating petition either was passed or not passed. If it's not, we could still serve notice.
So there were complaints from the residents about the alley?
Yes, there were.
What is normally the position of code enforcement when these situations come up?
When a situation like this comes up, as unique as it is, we sought the guidance of legal, and there were several meetings with all the city stakeholders who didn't seem to have a whole lot of interest in what was in the alley with regard to the city's interest.
No further questions.
Any other questions?
I have
Councilman Miranda.
Chairman, thank you, Ms. Amos. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate your sincerity and your willingness to be here today. Tell me about the alley. Can you walk the alley?
Not right now. No, the encroachments prevent that.
That's what I'm getting at. Do you have any pictures that we can see that are actual pictures of the alley? Because what I see here is an alley that's open, that's really closed.
Right.
You can't go through it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't understand why brings it to this point today that they don't want it closed when they themselves closed it. The property owner says, I understand it, and I'm not here to fault anyone, for whatever reason. Maybe somebody before them and they bought the house after, but somebody violated with or without knowledge. Morning, Mr. Robinson. With or without knowledge, put something in the right of way that was not their property. Am I correct?
Yes.
Do you know how many of them are there?
Not exactly. I'm guessing, based on what we've seen, about 4 or 5 properties, maybe 6.
So what's gonna happen if this alley's not closed? They gotta remove them?
Yes, yes. Notice will be served, and the encroachments will have to be removed.
And do you think that's gonna happen?
Oh, I have no idea, sir.
Well,
It's,
and I'm not trying to put you in the hot seat, believe me, I know you don't have that. It's up to the homeowners. From what I've seen, you have a fence and property that have taken over. Is there any concrete buildings or any concrete poured into the alley that they have to remove?
I don't believe there's any concrete. There's a lot of pavers and things like that. It's either way, it's a lot of expensive personal items that have been installed.
Can you give me an estimate of what the expenses are, just a ballpark
Oh, gosh,
figure?
I couldn't even begin to tell you. Many
But it
thousands
ain't
of
gonna be
dollars.
$1 or $2.
Yeah, many thousands, probably.
Many thousands. So then you're gonna have, are the neighbors still speaking to each other, the ones that close the alley illegally, the ones that don't wanna close?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that.
I'm asking all these questions because these are things going through my mind. I've never seen a situation like this where if they don't close the alley, they're gonna have to pay to leave it open. It's like going to the Ferris wheel. You don't know when it's gonna stop if the motor's broken.
Right.
So somebody violated the law, at least 4 or 5 of the 10 or 12 homes in that block on
Yes.
either side, maybe 15, 20 homes. Do they know about it personally themselves?
The ones with the encroachments? Oh, I'm quite certain they know that they've done this, yes.
Are any one of them in the room today?
I don't believe so.
So then you have a conflict of interest there. I don't hear, I see head shaking, and I'm not trying to be in any way a detective on this, but the alley is open, but it's closed at the same time.
Well, it's closed due to the encroachments.
Right.
It's open because it hasn't been vacated.
So no one can now drive a car through it to park in the backyard, am I correct?
Correct, sir, yes.
So what am I doing here today then?
That's a
I'm
good
asking that
question.
question to myself. And I'm not on either side. I see something that I've never seen before.
It is very unique.
And the problem with this is gonna go on for a long period of time, because I would imagine you're gonna have homeowners against homeowners, and sooner or later, somebody's gonna have to sue somebody that they don't wanna move their building. Thank you much, Mr. Amos.
Yes, sir.
But, Mr. Chairman, right there.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to Councilman Carlson, and I would like to ask some questions, but I'll come back to you.
No, I just wonder if legal will allow us, if you think it's appropriate to have a representative of the public come back and respond to that.
To rebut what the state, excuse me, what the city.
Just to, not to rebut, just to give their perspective or response to that.
No, it's normally not done, sir, no. If you have a specific question that you ask, but the question is, what I'm concerned about is due process and consistency with the record relative to this hearing. So the question is, it's not an open forum and it's not a debate. It is testimony that's being provided to you based on your questions specifically, and then based on the criteria that has been provided to you upon which you must base your decision. That solely is it. This is not an opportunity for a back and forth, no.
If I make it, and along Mr. Carlson's idea, I think where he's going. So then we have parties who don't want it closed here. Do we have any of the parties that have illegally built something or bought something that was illegally put there here today?
I don't see anybody in the audience, but there was one public commenter that spoke that is on the east side of the north-south alleyway who spoke about that.
What did he say?
That they were given permission to have the pavers installed and have a driveway in that area, again, on the north-south part of the L-shaped alleyway.
Who gave him the permission? We don't know.
That we don't know.
Maybe it's one of the neighbors. Yeah, you can do it. And he did. I understand that, believe me when I tell you. This is like West Tampa South. Yeah, put it in, don't worry. You know, that's how it is. I'm not upset with anyone, but that's how it happens. So now here's this guy stuck.
Councilman Goode.
Just for the record, make sure I get it right, and I appreciate your candor with it. I want to make sure I got it right. There were legitimate complaints filed with code enforcement about this alley, correct, sir?
Yes, there were. Yeah, the main complainant was Ms. Price, who's here today, and we had many conversations about it.
And your department took it to
Yes.
other department heads to figure out this situation, and it fell on deaf ears. That's what I'm hearing, sir?
Well, it didn't fall on deaf ears. We brought in all the stakeholders, the city stakeholders, and had several discussions with legal about it. We heard that there were a lot of discussion about possible vacating.
But that's all I'm asking. There was something done illegal, correct?
Yes.
Your department took it to the attention of legal and whatever departments are involved in this situation, correct?
Not anymore.
Mr. Chairman, can I step in?
Sure.
So,
Name, please, sir.
Keith O'Connor, Director of Neighborhood Enhancement. Just to go back to what Kevin Amos is trying to say. So this is a unique situation. This alleyway and the encroachments, we're talking many, many years. You would never drive by here and say there's an alley there. And there are a lot of places in the city like that. But when you go to the plat, the alley is clear. So, to his point and to your point, we cannot just look at it and go, that's a clear violation. I don't even know where the alley is. So we started with the survey. Like he said in the beginning, there was nothing urgent going on here because we're talking many, many years. This alley, I don't think was ever used for vehicular traffic. So it's a narrow alley. If you cleared it out, you still can't drive down it because you can't turn at the T. So what we wanted to do was do the survey and see exactly what is in the alley, that we could prove there's an encroachment. So with the survey, we could see that the surveyor noticed it's 4 properties where there are encroachments. We still have not seen them ourselves. If we are gonna make a case, we have to prove to the magistrate that what's on that survey is there in real life and testify to it. So we just waited till this process went through, because there really is no sense of urgency. You can go around, I believe, the townhomes. The alley, it's a long way away from being clear, even if you know, to get through it. It's way, way overgrown.
Basically, it's let us be the good guy or the bad guy.
All right, are you finished? Yes, thank you. Please, I'd like to ask some questions also, please.
Yeah, sorry. But just considering you talked about consulting legal, other than informing you that these hearings were coming up, did legal give any other reason as to why you shouldn't find the 4 people who are violating the encroachment?
The discussion was always about, once we see what happens with the vacating, because it was such a long process. But I don't remember specifically them saying, you know, don't do it now or do it later. We just had to get everyone involved. We had no idea what was in there utility-wise. And as we went through each department, it seemed like no one utility-wise was interested.
Anyone else? First statement, all the more reason why code enforcement needs drones. That way you can fly over and see exactly what's happening, because you're not always allowed on the properties. Mr. Ammons, you've been with code enforcement for a few years.
About 37.
Yes. My question to you is, have you ever seen this alley open?
No, I haven't.
And how long have you been in South Tampa as a supervisor or an employee with code enforcement?
Since I was district supervisor in South Tampa since 2008.
2008. I believe Ms. Canalejo was before you down there?
He was.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I'm going to go to legal. Vacating of this right-of-way. It's 12 foot, you correct? It's 12-foot alley?
I think the east and west corridor is 12 feet, and the north and south is 15?
10 and 15.
10 and
Okay.
15.
Regardless, if this was to be vacated, it would be evenly distributed between both properties.
No, sir, I cannot make that representation either way. First of all, city does not get involved in private property boundary disputes. As I said, generally speaking, you do typically go down the center line. However, when there's 2 subdivisions that abut each other and the alleyway is contained within one subdivision, then there's a possibility that the split does not occur and one side gets it above the other.
I'm glad I asked that question.
But again, I'm not saying or making any representation as to.
But that's the first time I've ever heard it, and I've been dealing with code enforcement and various review board for years. That's the first time I've heard of it. Not saying you're wrong, but my point was going to be, regardless if you did split it between the property owners, some of the stuff that's in that alleyway would have to be torn down anyways.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly it would be the Chicago Avenue townhome owners that would have to enforce that right, their fee simple property right.
That's perspective for me. Thank you. Is there anyone online that is going to speak to agenda item number 71? I believe that Stephanie Pointer and Carol Ann Bennett. Ms. Pointer, are you there? All right, Ms. Bennett, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I have to have you on video, Ms. Bennett. And I will have to ask you, and if Ms. Pointer is there, to please raise your right hands.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Pointer, you're muted. go to Ms. Bennett. Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Hi, my name is Caroline Bennett. I'm a lifelong resident of South Tampa. I want to point out that one of the things legal told you that you must consider is, will the abutting owner's access be cut off? That's obviously a yes. So legally, I don't really see how you can ignore that, because there's only certain things you can consider, and that's one of them. I heard Mr. Michelini say there's no public purpose. Well, there's no public purpose due to illegal encroachment. And the people who object to this are trying to use it for a public purpose. I also have to wonder if when staff made its recommendation of consistent, I doubt if they had spoken to the people on Chicago, and I doubt if they were aware that they had been trying to get the alley available to them. Another thing I'd like to point out is that you heard them say that the alley is part of the subdivision of the townhomes. So it actually belongs to that subdivision. And Ms. Pointer and I recently had a situation with a large apartment complex on Trask that was built. And some of the homeowners had encroached on that apartment complex's right of way. And apartment complex wanted the entire right of way, and they weren't going to split it with the homeowners because that right of way was part of the plat of their property. I grew up in an area that had an alley in the back that was never used by the city or anyone, actually. And several of the neighbors considered fencing it in, building stuff in, and everybody knew, yeah, you can do it, but if it ever comes to be a problem and you're gonna have to take it down, that's gonna be at your own expense. I would wager that if only 4 people, he said, have encroached out of a dozen, the other ones didn't do it because they were like, you know what, I don't want to take the chance on having to pay to take it down. You'll notice none of the people who want this, other than the petitioner's representatives, none of the other people who encroached, they're not here today. So I have to wonder if they know they did the wrong thing and they're just holding their breath to see what's going to happen. These people have been trying for 2 years to get their alley back. And I think that, it's an unreasonable request to take that away from them. So I think that this should be denied. Thank you.
Ms. Pointer. You're muted, Ms. Pointer. Ms. Pointer.
Ms. Pointer, you may need to unmute your actual device.
She's gone. Okay. Any rebuttal?
Before you do that, Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Yes.
We do have members of staff here, so if you do have any other questions of staff, if you want to take any additional testimony, please do so before rebuttal.
I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
Any other council members?
Answered my question pretty well.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Could I just ask legal a question? Since we went through such a long conversation with staff and the public, should we offer the applicant any additional time or anything to respond?
Ron Wigington, Legal Department. Since you allowed public speakers to speak multiple times, I certainly would recommend that the applicant get
as customary.
Ready for me?
How much time are you giving him?
Go time.
5 minutes?
Mr. McLeany, please proceed.
Council, the staff has pointed out that this is a unique situation, and I concur with that. It is a unique situation. The alley was undefined. It is impassable. I don't know how long it's been impassable. I don't know why, someone thought that they could, build whatever they were building out into what is a platted alley. So what we did was we hired a third-party title company to try to help us sort this out. And they came back to us and indicated that in 1987, when the Chicago townhouses were platted, They did not reserve any rights whatsoever to the alley. It was abandoned, and I'll be happy to submit that into the record. So when they're talking about, we want our alley back, those rights transferred to everybody on Stroud. They did not reserve anything, and the fact that they designed the townhouses in a manner that they had no access back there, that's an issue regarding them and their developer that did that. It did not transfer over to the property owners along Stroud. I do have, you know, some of our own photographs that I showed you before. This is what happens along the south side of the Chicago townhouses. Concrete block wall and a full PVC fence. There is no access there. And when they're talking about seeking permission from the adjacent property owners to access the rear, they're correct. Because they don't have the rights to begin with. And the second part of that is, it's impassable. There's only one gate along that entire length and width of the alley that is accessible by the Chicago townhomes. With respect to, you know, does it serve a public purpose? It does have utilities there. And those utility easements are being reserved for the use of all of those adjacent property owners. I have a video. We did an aerial drone flyover for this. I'm just not sure how to show it, but I have it. I'd sent it to the staff earlier, and you know, we weren't sure who was loading it up to the city, but I have it, and it clearly shows the obstructions. Now, the obstructions were not properly permitted. Maybe they were properly permitted. I don't know, but that's not the issue. The issue is the alley being used, or can it be used by the townhouses on Chicago? The answer is no. Can't. They don't have the rights to it anymore. They gave it up. Their plat clearly shows that they did not reserve any rights to that alley. The title company that came back with the report shows there's nothing there for them. You know, at the end of the day, it amounts to, if there's access is to be granted, it's a cooperation between property owners. It transfers from the city to a civil issue. It's no longer, I mean, if you vacate it or if you don't vacate it, it's still a civil issue. Because technically, the Stroud Avenue people could put a fence up inside of their fence. They don't have rights to the alley. I think the aerial photographs that we've shown you before and the staff has shown you, actually it sits like that. I don't know, as the staff has also pointed out, you couldn't drive a car through there if you wanted. So if you don't vacate it, then we go back and code enforcement issues a citation. And typically the reason they don't issue a citation is because you're trying to achieve a cure. You're given an opportunity to, how do you correct this problem? And the way to correct the problem is to vacate the alley. And then, you know, everyone else is dealing with it on, you know, a different venue. They're not dealing with it here and arguing with the city staff. They're not arguing about who can do what there. It's not reopening for them. It's a matter of, is it accessible and is it being utilized for the property owners along Stroud and with the proper easements? The city staff has told you they have no objections, and everybody and the brother has known about the issues related to this. I mean, there are emails that go all around regarding the difficulties associated with this property. So we respectfully request your approval to vacate the alley, take this off of the city's agenda, and it becomes a civil issue between the property owners and the petitioner if necessary.
Councilman Goode.
Mr. Wigginton.
Yes, sir.
Is there now a violation of the alleyway?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question, please?
Is there not a violation of the alleyway at this time?
Is there a violation? There's
Yes.
encroachments into the alley.
That's
Yes,
a
sir.
violation, right?
There's been no finding of violation.
I'm not talking, sir, is there a violation?
I cannot tell you that there's a
Code-
violation. All I
code-
can tell you that
I'm
there is.
asking because code enforcement just said that they were going to cite.
Oh, the code enforcement.
We don't, we would cite if there's an encroachment that we can prove. Right now, we have a survey, we have not physically seen it ourselves and done an inspection. So I don't know what's, the surveyor shows us that there's encroachments, and an encroachment would be a violation.
And that's the problem I have. The problem I have that we have not completely done our job. I feel that if citizens brought a complaint, we should have investigated the complaint thoroughly. And if code enforcement took it to the other entities of the city and we did nothing, or we're just sitting back and waiting to see what they're going to do, to me, that's wrong. I think it's wrong, and we should have did a little bit more investigative that's what the citizens depend on us to do, to give them answers. And what I'm hearing right now, that we did not clearly give these citizens answers. And if there was a violation, those doors or people who are in violation should have been notified. They're all living there in that community. And what I see right now, win, lose, or draw, you're gonna have problems with this whole situation still. It probably will end up being a civil situation. But what has happened here, we've thrown this burden on this council to make a decision for our citizens versus looking at, it should have probably been settled down here before. So that's my issue right now, it's now we're the bad guy from somebody versus the city being a responsible person and then investigating, doing it properly, and make a decision there, and now come bringing to me concrete evidence of things that need to be done. And right now, I'm not sure that has been done. Are you back, sir?
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. I hope for the last time, I have to agree with Mr. Good's assumption of the facts. Can I ask the city, how long would it take for you to have concrete evidence that the violation is there?
It depends on if they let us in the backyard.
Well,
But I would imagine we could utilize the city surveyor who physically saw him, could be used as a witness, I would imagine.
yes, sir. I'm just asking you, Chief, about the surveyor. For you to justify that the surveyor's information to you is 100% correct, and you have actual photos. The one I've seen now is photos that are on paper, but not the actual photo itself. And I know that I'd just like to see this thing come to an end and resolve itself. And right now, we're going to be part of a litigation because we're the ones who are going to have to cite them, and we're the ones who are going to have to take them to court. Am I correct?
We would cite the 4 property owners if we established they would come before a magistrate if they did not just remove the encroachments on their own.
How long would that take?
It depends on the encroachment, but there's sheds and pavers. I mean, you could do it real quick, or they could say
Well,
my experience is a lot of times they're gonna fight it out and stuff, because these things have been here for many, many years.
I like to see it resolved, but I don't think I can vote. If I have to vote today, there is evidence that the alley, although being open on paper, is actually closed in reality. There's no way you can drive through the alley.
No.
On one side or the other. That means it's open. If it was closed, you couldn't drive anyway, legally. It's not closed, it's illegally closed, and you still can't drive through it. So it's a complicated situation that we have here, and I like to see it resolved, but I like to see it resolved where the city is out of it. Neighbors want to sue each other, it's up to them. Because the petitioner has the right also, just like the neighborhood's right. And I've heard what the young lady said here about we should deny it. Well, they're not sitting here and listening to the problems we said. And I'm not willing to say that I'm right or wrong. I'm willing to say I want it to be 100% correct when I vote on it one way or the other. And I'm not saying that you guys didn't do your job. You did your job, and you did it very thoroughly. But like Mr. Good says, I need the surveyor's thing to say this is what it is, so in case it goes to court, you already have the evidence. You don't have to wait another 6 months. The evidence is here in front of the magistrate. So I need the evidence, the physical evidence from a surveyor saying that that alley is impeded and it's not open, it's closed.
The survey shows that. The survey that we have, it shows it. That's
But do
the
we
city
have
survey.
the survey and somebody says, yes, I did it?
I'm sure it's a city employee, so yes, they're
So
here
what do we
somewhere.
do today then?
Ron Wigington Legal Department, Vic Beatty is available, I believe, online to address the survey issue.
Well,
And also just like to remind City Council that the point of vacating is simply to release the right-of-way. And that's a super easement, if you will. We have reserved other easements, but the encroachment issue is really a side issue, if you will, a private issue, because the encroachment may only be, if the vacating is approved, may only be on the easement holders. And so all the easement holders, all the easements that were reserved, those holders have reviewed this and have not objected to the vacation. So,
if I may close, on my part anyway, it is, again, it's open, but it's closed. So with this, let's say that there were no other, is this petition that's before us, is this going to exacerbate the problem that we have there if they leave it the way it is? No one can go there. He can't go into the alley. The alley's closed, but he can't go in there legally. If this thing, if the petitioner is looking at it and all the others are removed, then he would be the ones closing the alley because he's the only building or the only way that alley's cut up 7 feet or whatever, 5 feet on his side. But you already have buildings that are there. You have already buildings that can this person who said they can't drive in the back of their house to get in. Unless this new petition is going to stop her from doing that, she still can do it. Am I correct?
yes, sir, I believe I understand your question correctly.
That argument. I'm confused to the point of what I've heard, not what I'm thinking. It just doesn't make sense. We're closing an alley and everybody's objecting. No, some people are objecting to it, but it's already closed, not legally. That's the problem we have.
Yes, sir, I agree.
Thank you.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, one more question based on what's happening. Apologies to the petitioner, and I'm certain we'll give extra time for this, but, sorry, the petitioner, excuse me. The petitioner, testified and handed out a document regarding a title insurance survey. And sorry if I paraphrase, but said essentially that the prior owners of the property had abandoned the alley. Has the legal department reviewed those documents to make any judgment as to whether that's true or not?
Well, again, it's not the city's position to resolve property boundary disputes, but I have reviewed the subdivisions that were mentioned. This whole thing was a part of C.B. Shaw's subdivision originally, and then in 1981, I thought, not 1987, I thought it was 1981, that's when Chicago Avenue Townhome subdivision was carved out of C.B. Shaw's, and in their boundary lines of that subdivision, it does not include the alleyway.
From the city's point of view, if you all thought, if the legal department thought that the alley was already abandoned, then we wouldn't have had to go through this whole process in the first place.
The alley has never been abandoned. It's still there on paper, and it's based on a 1907 plat of C.B. Shaw's. It was, to my knowledge, I've never heard any information that it was ever open to vehicular traffic. I don't even know if it's possible for vehicular traffic to use this alleyway.
But from the city's point of view, the city still has this easement, which is why we're...
On paper, based on a 1907 plat, yes, sir.
Which is why we have to go through this process, okay.
And again, the reason why we're going through this process is that the applicant has complied with our code in the sense that they filed the necessary paperwork and documentation. And so it is, it's not the city's position to either advocate or either side. We simply have an obligation to present this to City Council, and this is your opportunity to make the decision. I apologize for putting you in a difficult position. I think all of the departments have recognized that this is a very unique situation, and the outcome is really uncertain. But whether the vacating gets approved or not, the problem is still going to be there.
Show.
Mr. Michelini, did you want to address the additional testimony that's been proffered?
I've got one more question.
Yes, sir.
So you might.
Want to wait a minute?
You might want to, I still have a question. Mr. Wigington, can you come? And I'm not, it is not my intention to split hairs. I'm trying to define the access to the alleyway because there is a wall that has been discussed and shown on paper. The definition of access to that alleyway, does that include vehicles entering onto properties? If so, is that wall gonna have to be cut for an apron, some form of apron to be put there so that vehicles can enter onto the property?
I think I understand your question. So
I hope
again,
so.
we are basing this all on a 1907 plat, which has an alleyway. So we presume that it's for right-of-way purposes. That's what the statute provides for it, that it is for right-of-way purposes. And so as far as being able to have vehicular traffic in there, certainly mobility, I believe, is on the line, and they can opine as to whether that's even feasible or not. But as far as the apron is concerned, yes, I mean, they're gonna have to carve out a
So
12-foot
that
swath
more than likely somewhere in that wall for each
on each side.
townhome is gonna have to be, but that wall, from what testimony that I heard was earlier, was for water runoff. So my question is that someone, maybe everyone, is gonna be financially bound by the decisions that this council makes.
Again, I don't believe that any decision on the vacating matter is going to impact the problem, and I don't think that that is going to be a justification for.
And I'm not, the monetary issues are not basis for this council, but I just made that statement. Either way this council goes, some residents, one way or the other, are gonna be facing something that has to be done with their property. Thank you, sir. Any other further questions or comments? Now, Mr. Shelby. Ah, Vic, Mr. B-Day, you wanted to make some statements.
Does he have to be sworn in?
Yes,
Morning,
please.
Council.
Mr. B-Day, raise your right hand for me, please.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. B-Day.
Morning, Council, Chair, Vic Bide, Director of Mobility Department. I just wanted to make one statement relative to access. And if there are questions relative to the survey, I can address those as well because the city surveyor falls under the purview of the Mobility Department. So you've heard that for decades, this alley has not been utilized for vehicular access. And to that end, in order to facilitate any kind of access through here, encroachments notwithstanding, there's a lot of vegetation and significant investments would have to be made by the city to create that access. Relative to those needs or investments, and when compared to the city's priorities relative to our current resources, that would not rise up to the level of priority based on the current network in the area. So I just wanted to share that relative to vehicle access. We also have looked at a history of concerns and not found any major concerns with the stormwater portion because there is a stormwater easement through this alley currently. And that is why we determined that a stormwater easement is not required through this, should this be vacated. And then as far as our surveyor was concerned, he did conduct a survey in the area and produce the results that are part of the materials that were presented today. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. B-Day. All right, how's about a minute and a half for any type of rebuttal from everything we just discussed?
You know, I've already said it's a difficult situation. Whether you vacate it or you don't vacate it, it still doesn't give the Chicago townhomes access. It just doesn't. It was abandoned when they replatted that north section. And I understand their frustration. They have a wall and a fence there already. And so, I mean, they have self-imposed their own restriction. The design of those townhomes was not up to anybody on Stroud, it was up to the developer. I think it would be appropriate to provide the relief. This particular petitioner is not one of those that has encroachments into the alley. And the other people that do have the encroachments, I mean, we're shifting the responsibility back onto someone else. I don't know where you go with this, except that we think it's an appropriate request. The alley should stand on its own. The other issues will be sorted out accordingly, whether it goes to code enforcement. But one of the principles of code enforcement is if you're cited, you're given an opportunity to provide a cure. how do you cure the encroachments? The only way to do that is through a vacating. The petition was timely filed to do that. So it wasn't as if the city ignored any of those complaints. The responsibility shifted back to the petitioner and the responsibility of the adjacent property owners, and they were trying to cure that issue. The staff has told you that there are no objections to this vacating. None of the utilities that were surveyed in this, there's 14 different survey checkpoints with water and transportation and TECO and everybody else. They had no objections. So we respectfully request that you approve this vacating, so at least we can get one portion of this complicated issue resolved. Thank you for your time.
Before you close, I'll make Council Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney for the record. What you have before you is an application to vacate an alley, and that is the task that you have in front of you. You've heard a substantial amount of evidence and argument. You've had the opportunity to have it continued for the benefit of having staff brought in for additional testimony and additional information. To remind you again, Council, and to focus your attention on the task in front of you, I'm going to cite back to the criteria that Mr. Wigginton had referenced throughout this hearing from a memo specifically from Julia Mandel, Senior Assistant City Attorney back then on April of 2011, that lists the criteria, and they are in the memo, items 1 through 4, and those were referenced again by Mr. Wigginton. I'd ask that if you do make any discussion about this, that you do make findings of fact, and on that basis you apply the facts as you find them to the criteria that's in front of you, upon which you must base your decision in order to be legally sustainable. So I'd ask you to take a look at that, and if you have any comments with regard to what your motion is, a discussion amongst yourselves with regard to findings would be helpful for the purposes of the record.
Second.
Have a motion closed by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
What's the pleasure of council?
Well, it was my turn, so I'm not going to put pressure on the council. I appreciate the way you said that. But I'm just going to say what I see here, what I've seen, and then we can go from there and discuss it. Chairman, item 71, file number VAC 22-41. This is a continued public hearing from October 20th of 22, and I'm going to move it for first reading consideration, and then I'll state why. Move an ordinance presented for first reading, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, vacating, closing, discontinuing, and baling that alleyway north of Stroud Avenue, south of Chicago Avenue, east of Carolina Avenue, west of Moody Avenue, within the plat of C.B. Shaw subdivision in the City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, Florida, as more described in sections 2 thereof, subject to certain covenants, conditions, and restrictions, as more particularly set forth herein, providing for enforcement and penalties for violation, providing for definitions, interpretation of repeating conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date. As I read through these things, I saw some of the things that said, well, it's the city's problem. Maybe it is. But the time that the city had no knowledge at all of what was going on until this petition hit here. Then some neighbors complained, and rightly so, they have the right to do that. However, in their complaint, it was brought out then that the alley was illegally closed without being legally closed, and that they've been doing that for I don't know how many years. Then comes the other evidence that I want to have my car be able to go to the back. Well, that was never brought up prior to today, to my knowledge, and I have sympathy for that. But then I realized How can you get in and out of your alley if it's part of it is closed? You can only go one way. What about that way's blocked? How are you gonna get out? There's a lot more that would meets the eye in what we spoke about today. The city has done some work on it. Code enforcement came back and put on the record that the alley is not right now usable for auto traffic, and maybe not even usable for foot traffic. Maybe I'm wrong in the foot traffic part, but I don't know if I am. So what are we gonna do? You have various choices. One, to remove it and close it. One, to leave it like it is. And that doesn't satisfy too many, because now you have a conflict in the neighborhood. You have 4 or 5 that have violated, knowingly or not knowingly, maybe bought the property with that already there, and I have no knowledge of that, or we don't have no knowledge of that. So what are we gonna be responsible for? I can only be responsible for what I heard today in this chamber. And the preponderance of evidence, even though there was evidence to close it, I mean, to leave it open, there was evidence to leave it open, and rightly stated, the evidence then to close something that's already closed. So what am I doing? I'm not something new, it's already closed. You cannot drive through the alley. You have neighbors who, for whatever reason, have taken over the property, knowingly or not knowingly, but it's against city law. How long is this gonna take? May take years. When you go to court, first you got to go to the magistrate. The magistrate gonna issue hers or his opinion, and it's gonna linger on for some time. You appeal, and I don't know when it's gonna be heard. Not trying to form excuses at all. It's gonna cause a hardship between the neighbors right now. How would you like to live next to someone, and that someone's telling you, you gotta move your building that you have in the alley? You think you're gonna speak to that neighbor? You think you're gonna embrace that neighbor and say, what a nice neighbor you are, I love you? You really think that? I doubt it. Human nature is you're not gonna speak to that neighbor for a long time, maybe never. And there's not more than one neighbor, there's 4 or 5 neighbors who are gonna have that happen. So that's why I moved it. To me, the alley is illegally closed, and it hasn't been used. It hasn't been used to park cars in the back. That only came about when this petition came up, that they said they want to use the alley. How come they weren't using the alley before? Maybe I'm wrong. That's what I heard. The alley's there. They didn't open the gate and move the car in the back. They didn't do that. Even though they know one side is closed, you can come in, back out, I guess, if you want. So that's the reason I moved this petition, because it makes sense of what I'm saying. It may be, but I believe that that's the right move. I'm not asking anyone to vote for it or vote against it. It's your opinion, just like mine is. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion made by Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any further discussion? Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote no, and just to state the reasons why. I think the fact that it's illegally closed is irrelevant, because the city staff testified that there's still an existing easement. Just because somebody in the past illegally closed it doesn't mean that should be subjected to current owners who bought with the expectation based on the plat that it's open. And I don't think it's in the best interest of general welfare, and also it will limit access to the abutting property owners in addition to other things. Thank you.
Councilman Goods.
I find multiple things wrong. Didn't see a preponderance of the evidence. The alley is deemed an open alley. You have people that took it upon themselves, however, to do what they wanted to do, and that happens in communities. There were statements about folks can't get into their backyard. I saw photos of construction work in their front yard when I looked at the photos. I can't support the fact that because it seems like you're trying to put the burden on this council, and we have some responsibility, but I think some other balls were dropped. and I truly believe that. I wish somehow it could go back to the neighbors to where they can figure this out themselves, or we see how we can help them to mediate this process. I think that's what needs to occur here, that the neighbors need to mediate this process. Because if you look at it, whatever decision we make, we will probably get sued no matter which way we go. Because you're gonna have some property owners upset, you're gonna have the neighbors who are here opposing it. So for me, I don't see all of the evidence. I see mistakes that have been made in this process, even though it is a unique circumstance. But we can't look and say what we can do, but what we can do. And I think when there are unique circumstances, we have to take the extra steps to help our citizens. That's what they look for us to do as a municipality, to help them with some of their situations. We can't help all the time, but I think in this situation, we could have done a little bit more. So I cannot support Mr. Miranda's motion.
Any other comments? Mr. Shelby?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. There's been a couple of comments about preponderance of the evidence. Just for purposes of council's decision-making, your decision is not necessarily based on preponderance of the evidence or the beyond a reasonable doubt or that kind of guidance. Actually, the courts ask for competent, substantial evidence contained within the record to support your decision. So what I'm going to ask of council is, for the purposes of the record, I'd ask that you actually make reference to at least the criteria to be able to base your decision and rely on the evidence that you've ascertained relates to that sort of criteria. That's applying the code and then seeing where the decision is. For the papers, if this case is going to be challenged, it's going to be challenged on the basis of council's decision and its criteria upon which it bases its decision.
Before we go there, whoever wants to add to that motion, I'm looking at the 4 criteria myself. And the first one is based on reports, evidence presented at the public hearing. Is it in the interest of the general welfare to vacate the subject street or alley, i.e. will it alleviate or relieve the public from the cost of maintaining the right-of-way, which is no longer useful or used by only a few members of the public? We haven't maintained that right-of-way in 30 years. Will it alleviate public nuisance such as dumping or curtail criminal activity? Will it foster redevelopment by abutting properties? Number 2, will an abutting owner access? And I tried to get someone to define access, which is just driving a motor vehicle down there or actually entering the property. So, number 3, can the general public interest be served by approving the vacating petition subject to special conditions being imposed, i.e. easements? And number 4, I don't know if it's actually in this. If the vacating of the alleyway is the entire vacating, which it is, if not, then proper turnaround or cul-de-sac must be provided. I'm looking at the 4 criteria here, and I am going to go with 2 of them in my vote. I think that Mr. Shelby has asked for a little bit more definition in the motion. Is that correct?
Well, council, when a court reviews this, it's going to see the decisions upon which council bases it, and it's going to see if it applies the criteria and if the essential requirements of law have been followed. So it's council how it wishes to proceed. You've been advised about how you must base your decision, upon which you must base your decision in order for it to be legally sustainable.
I just read the reasons why I'm going to do mine. We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded, Councilman Miranda, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtag? Carlson?
No.
Goods?
No.
Vieira?
Yes.
Cicitro?
Yes.
Motion carried with Carlson and Goose voting no and Hurtak being absent. Second reading and adoption will be held on December 15, 2022 at 9:30 a.m.
Mr. Shelby?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, again, that date is
December 15th at 9:30 a.m.
to remind council, this is coming back for a second reading and a public hearing. I'm going to caution council to avoid any ex parte communications and discuss this publicly. Also, that if you do get any additional communications that are sent to you ex parte, that you put them in the quasi box. Thank you very much, council.
Thank you very much. We're at recess till 1:30.
Thank you, council.